comments denigrating race or gender are in direct violation of the standards expected of players. So that actually gives us more information than anything that we got.
Whoever told him, yo, yeah, tell your team that you know
leave
you're
your team.
leaving, you're
Yeah.
coming to us. It's their fault. Like the fact that they have told him, it doesn't matter if it's a player, if it's management, I don't give a who it is. You tell that dude 100% to give up with the team that he's on. They've just this guy over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the way G2 works is what G2 wants, G2 gets. That's very much how it works, because G2 has the power to basically do pretty much anything.
So yeah, all the best with that one. All right, let's talk a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. So a couple things to cover. Obviously, first one was interesting news. Zellsis suspended. Not indefinitely. There's a term to this suspension. It's not super bad, but just very odd. We'll speculate about that because frankly, we have no concrete information outside of what's been said, which is not very much. We'll also be talking about the SpikeGG. I asked Vance, what does it say on Arthur's shirt in this picture?
Yeah, so in good French Quebecer, it says "Je m'en calisse," which means I don't give a fuck in Quebecer.
Wow, that's
Yep.
fitting. Okay, we'll talk a little bit more about the SpikeGG and how that's progressing because I think we want to follow back up on that one after we spend a lot of time talking about it. After that, we'll talk a little bit about this interesting dichotomy between Riot, not all of Riot's products to be fair, but we'll talk about the LCS and the press because some interesting news came out this week about exactly how that's all being handled. Kind of gave me like, I don't know, Sarah Huckabee Sanders vibes. We'll talk about that for sure. And then we'll come back to our favorite topic as of late. It's like, what the fuck's going on with G2 and T1? Obviously, there are things happening. There's stuff in the works. We just need to piece it together, I think, a little bit. We'll have GeorgeCGed join us from Upcomer to discuss a little bit of that. But let's go first. Let's talk about some of the bans that have been doled out lately. Before we get to the Zellsis one, though, this guy is fairly well known. S2A is a pretty well known stream sniper, and the guy.
I thought you were gonna say he's a known player, but then known stream sniper. I guess
no,
so, right?
I don't know if he's really that known as a player, but this guy is stream sniping, and he does this frequently. I think this person stream. I don't think this is. Yeah, look at this.
Yeah.
This guy is basically stream sniping, right? Like,
and there you go. When you're talking about him being popular, look at that clip. It racked up 222,000 views of him alt-tabbing, looking at Diamond stream. But the funny part about that is just that I think he was trying to talk shit to Diamond at the same time. It's like, oh, let me type something.
Yeah.
And there was also like conversations in like Discord of like, bro, it was only for like 1 round. And then after that, I was like, bro, it was only for like 2 rounds. So now the meme around the community is like, it was just 1 or 2 rounds, guys. It was not that bad. Like let's try to forgive him, right? But yeah, he definitely got a Twitch ban. The TOS for stream sniping is considered cheating under Twitch TOS. So got that ban.
I mean, you can't, because he's talking shit to the bloke as well. You know what I mean? It's mental that he's actually streaming that. You know, how hard is it to like do it on a different device? Just like, I don't know, man.
When you can get a
2
game
monitors at
capture
least.
up
I don't
there,
know.
Like the balls that you have to be desktop capturing and stream sniping and alt tab in the middle of the game.
You could just
dude.
like the
Come on, at least
technology
be smart
exists.
about it.
The technology exists to just take your game feed and nothing else. If you alt tab, you won't see anything but the game. Like that is a very commonly used fucking hell, man.
Yeah,
it's always the dumbest fucks, isn't it? Jesus Christ.
Well, but it still brings me to that question a little bit further on with that too. It's like, yes, he got banned here from Twitch chat, or should I say just from Twitch with streaming. I forgot for how long, but at the same time, it feels at the same that for Twitch, it could be very subjective too, right? Because a lot of people are stream sniping. A lot of people are like, let's take for our biggest example, like the Fallout game from Twitch Rivals, and then you had like the XQC stream snipe to try to just for comedic relief, do like some like throw some games, whatever, like to grab the other streamers and whatnot. And he didn't get banned or anything like that too. So what measurements do we really want to imply or put into this right now? As I feel it could be very similar to like people not using mics, people in rank being toxic. It's like how do you manage these bans or not? You know?
Well, I mean, you can't really prove. What's so remarkable at this situation, Mitch, is that you can't really prove someone's stream sniping you unless they're also
Normally.
streaming them stream sniping you.
That's
Yeah.
true. I mean, like a lot of the time, it's going to be someone like in your chat that's in their chat as well, is like letting you know. I think that's like, because I played with a couple of my players and we've seen it every now and then where like someone will come into chat and just be like, by the way, that dude's watching your stream, because you can literally like hear it on their stream or whatever it is, which is it's pretty fucking pathetic. But
yeah,
that's video gaming for you. I mean, my question would be, if you're a professional player, I wonder what Riot thinks of that. Like, if you were, because I know he's S2A's competed like a little bit. If you were actually a competitor, like let's say this was someone from the top 10 teams, would they get a ban transferred over because they've been caught technically cheating by Twitch? Usually, if you cheat in another game, it sometimes transfers. It's like, seems like a bit of a gray area.
Sometimes doesn't. We could take the T1 coach for an example.
Fuck me. Well, right. That, yeah. Also, like the E6 stuff as well, like the match fixing, how that carries over. That's a great enough area as it is. It's pointed out, LBJ points out in chat that XQC did get banned for that for a week.
Oh, yeah, for a week. Thanks, LBJ.
Which is what this guy got banned for as well. So at least there's some remote standardization. But I from Riot's perspective, it's like, well, I mean, well, sure, we could take action against this guy's account, but we can't set a precedent where people can get people banned for stream snipe, because it's just really hard to prove. Like, I get it sometimes. I'm streaming to like 50 people, and someone's in my chat like, haha, mini game, lol. I'm like, get the fuck out of my chat then. What are you doing? I'm trying to win here, you know? Shit. God damn it. It happens a lot when we play with Josh as well, because he gets like, 1-2K viewers sometimes. It's just like people are smurfing, just ruin you. That's like
streamer mode.
Yeah,
if you're playing Valorant.
Oh well, it doesn't exist in Overwatch. Yeah, I kind of like we have to. We do a little thing every fortnight where we all play together on YouTube, and it gets like a decent like 10K or so viewers, I think, sometimes, and we have to delay it. We have to delay it by a significant amount. Otherwise, we're just going to get absolutely bent over. Because there are like these GM players that just have, everyone has 40 accounts on Overwatch now, by the way. Blizzard reported there's like 10 million active users per month. Yeah, it's actually 5 different people. Yeah, they've just got 2 million accounts, and they just keep cycling through them, and they're all different SR. Anyway, let's carry on. Let's talk more about Valorant, because bigger news. Zellsis of version 1 fame, who really made a deep run in Reykjavik, has been banned. He's received a suspension for bad behavior during Masters Reykjavik. So he has violated Rule 7.1.2 subsection C of the Global Competition Policy, which mandates that players observe the highest standards of personal integrity and good sportsmanship at all times. As a result, he's suspended for the first Challenger Open qualifier and the first Challenger main event for Stage 3. That's fairly hefty, Vance.
Yeah, I think it's a good punishment, and I think at the same time, version 1 and Zellsis kind of accepted it. But if you're reading, so at first we had a TLDR, right? But you're looking at the sanctions here right now. Yeah. I think if you're going into the details, I think it was maybe a remark that he made to even a Riot employee, right? Because once you get into version 1 and Zellsis' statements, they're like, hey, we want to apologize directly to Riot for the conduct or whatnot. So I think it's definitely a good thing that it's been imposed. It's not because you've had like the Cinderella story, you have a big fan base. Version 1's got a lot more in terms of a fan base, thanks to Jammies as well. As a sub going in and going as far as they had, it doesn't matter at this point. You also have to maintain the competitive integrity. And if it's to hold everything at the highest standard and it's not being respected, then it's good that it's respected from Zellsis and from version 1.
Yeah. That's the thing I respect about it, that they didn't kind of turn around and go, oh, come on, it was just a joke, bro, or some shit like that. Like, they just actually took it like Zellsis. You can see in that tweet there, he's saying that, he'll be taking a few days off social media and I will be better. I rung home with me. I'm not mad at him. When I first saw that statement come out, I was like, what an idiot, man. Come on, you're a professional player. No kind of remark like that. Like, you got to understand that immediate little bit of gratitude, or not gratitude, but it makes you feel good in the moment, right? To just lash out if something happens, you get a ban, whatever it is. They're like they take a round off you, you say someone there was a glitch and they ignore it, tech issue, whatever. It feels good to just be like, oh, fuck you, man, but it's not worth it as a pro player. But the fact that he's owned up to it, he's acknowledging it, I'm gonna move on with it as a positive thing.
Yeah, I think what concerned me is that, you know, like it's very, very hard to know what happened, but in the sanctions section, you know, it makes it, whoever wrote this on the Riot side said that comments denigrating race or gender are in direct violation of the standards expected of players. So that actually gives us more information than anything that we got, than anything else. Because he said, like I made a comment. Everyone's like, you made a comment. Obviously, you know, it could have been anything, right? Like in my mind, I'm like, oh, you know, who knows? Maybe he hit on a Riot employee, didn't realize they were a Riot employee, or something, you know, something like that. You know, that I don't know what is it blokes that age say to people these days, but yeah, the fact that it's looks like it's a little bit more egregious is pretty concerning. I don't really want to spend too much time speculating on this because we don't really have enough information to make conjecture about Zellsis's character. Um, pretty bad though. I'll probably leave it there. A lot of me wants to go, oh, I wonder, you know, I wonder if it came up in game chat, or maybe he was talking with his team and maybe it was a remark he made, that not to anyone in particular. But Lord Lexus makes an interesting point in chat about yeah, that 100 Thieves, their delay of the tournament and the conduct of Frost was incredibly egregious. The fact that we heard it and it was not good. That was really only a slap on the wrist compared to this level of suspension. So, you know,
Well, wasn't
that
there a
might
fine?
give it-
I think 100 Thieves also got a fine out of that one too, right? Like $5,000 or something, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I think that for that day, Nadeshot had to use normal toilet paper. Yeah, it was tough for them, but I reckon they sort of bounced back pretty quickly.
Yeah, two plies instead of three.
Yeah. So that's right, just the two sheets. Well, I was probably didn't have that 5K round to wipe his paint with. All right, let's crack on. Let's talk about some roster moves here, because first one was really interesting. We found out that Draken has left guild.
Man.
So that already, I mean, that's quite curious. Now, people may not know, but Draken played on NIP's Counter-Strike Global Offensive team way back when. The guy's been around for ages, but he makes a departure here. This is the official statement, obviously. But the first thing I think when I hear this is like, what the fuck? You know, like, why is this happening? We don't really know, but the bloke's going to take a bit of time off, he reckons.
I think the thing when you look at Draken, he never amazed me. Like looking at him play, at least in Valorant, it was never a moment where I was like, holy shit, this guy's insane. And in the role that they're putting him in a lot of the time, you kind of want him to be. Like, I know he messed around more recently. He started to take up your Sova, we would regularly see him with, even tested the Yoru out in professional games, which was a real shock against some good teams late on into the Challengers playoffs. I think he did it versus Footballist. So, like, the reality is he's a solid player, but I think this team needed something a little bit different. And I'm really curious to see who they pick up, because this isn't a situation where he wants to leave. I know obviously he's going to take some time out, but from what I'm seeing, it's like Guild have decided that they're missing a little piece of the puzzle, and they obviously have their eye on someone.
Yeah, sorry, Mitch. I just wanted to add, it was like you always had like a good evolution of Guild moving forward, right? They were really close to making it. Like at some point when you were looking at the play-ins, there were like one game away or so to even make it into the finals, right? The regional finals. So they were pretty close. But then I feel that maybe it's an issue where it's not necessarily on. Yeah, Draken's not always hot. He's hot and cold when he's playing in his games, but overall the team synergy is kind of there. It's just maybe the agent depth pool isn't enough for the team either, where maybe now it's the duelist / Sova that has to be gone from Draken and they have to try to bring somebody else in.
So the thing about Draken, like, I want to say, like, when I talk about him not being like impressive, that he never wowed me, it was when he was on his jet, when he was playing like the typical jet operator. I didn't think he brought nearly as much as some of these other guys. Certainly if you compare him to someone like CNED, not a lot of people will weigh up to that, but I really felt like he just wasn't there. That's why I respect the fact that they shifted him over. It was a conversation we had in a number of desks and games over in EU when we saw Draken start to move towards Sova, Omen, Yoru, and about the Yoru was a real surprise, but more so the Sova and Omen opening up a little bit more room for the team and providing a bit more depth when he wasn't, you know, having those insane games. So I really enjoyed watching him towards the end. I think that shift was good to see from the team. In the early stages, that kind of pow of a duelist didn't really hit for me. And I think that's probably why Guild are swapping him out. They probably have their eye on someone who's just an insane individual that they're going to slot in here. And you put someone like that alongside Yassine, you could have a pretty scary team.
Yeah, I always thought he would make more of an impact considering how storied he was in Counter-Strike. I think, he was like, I mean, I remember that was back when I was casting CS, and when he joined that NIP team, it was obviously, it was not the get right, not the Forest Exist era, so to speak. It was the starting of a new era for that team, and he was quite impressive. I do know that Nick's team, no poaching. Yeah, I think and Ryan's saying in chat as well, but yeah, that Vicious guy who's also a Swede, right? Which makes sense because Barbar's the coach of this team. Barbar's like an OG Swedish tax shooter guy, like been around for a long time. And yeah, so I kind of like that they're sticking with a Swedish theme, potentially picking up this Vicious guy who's playing with like Chak and Aussie and Mo40 on this no poaching mix team, which I thought was hoping that I kind of hope that whole team would get picked up because I think they were winning some like the invitationals there. But apparently this guy's kind of insane. But when you've got him on, when you're dealing with a team that has like Safe, Leo, Yassine, Bonka, maybe Draken doesn't exactly stand out. I think Guild never really quite got where people would have wanted to see them go.
They're so close.
Yeah,
they're so close.
Yeah, well, you gotta make them small tweaks,
I would have much rather see them in Masters than Liquid, to be honest. Like, I really liked watching Guild as a team. Not when they played against my team. I fucking hated watching it then. But they're a really nice team. One thing I'll say for Vicious is actually we trialed him back, and we were really close to picking him up. It was just some other players pushed that little bit further in the games that we had. But Vicious is an insanely good player, and I think slotting him in could definitely make a pretty big difference, and would be hilarious if two players from no poaching got poached.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like they expected that when they put the team together. Yeah, they were like players that are
it's
like
their form of advertisement.
Yeah, it's like the Fnatic guys, who got dropped from that team are on the roster, and Aussie's there as well. So it's like all of your ex tier 1 team like players. So I'm not too surprised about it. What then? Is it a 1-to-1 switch? Like, is this a Sova Omen player? I don't know much about Vicious, Mitch. Do you know what he plays?
So when Vicious was playing with us, I'm pretty sure he was looking more at Omen, if I'm remembering correctly, at the time. But this guy has an insane depth in agents. I think he was, I don't want to spout misinformation. I think he was one of the players that said that he would play anything, like he would slot into any role. So when I talk about Guild and I talk about them dropping Draken and looking for maybe going back to that POW setup of getting a duelist who's going to bang out, it might not necessarily be the case that they're looking at picking one up. Then if we are talking about Vicious going on, it could be a case that maybe they're looking at someone within the roster being swapped over. Maybe Safe is going to go back. He used to be a duelist. We were very, very surprised when he picked up your Cypher and your Killjoy when he rejoined Guild. So it could be a situation where they decide to put him in. Hell, you could put Leo. Leo is incredibly underrated. I think he even ended up in the EMEA playoffs being one of the top 4 or top 5 players, certainly in terms of the votes that we had going on. He was nominated for that. So I think there's a lot of depth within that team that can be fed on. With Leo taking an Astra more recently, I think it's more likely that he sticks with that, because you come in and say, hey, I can play any agent. You probably don't mean Astra. Unless you're very specifically highlighting that. So I think what would make sense here is if Vicious comes in as a Sentinel, and then we actually see Safe swap back over. But then again, I'm thinking, I don't know, like Vicious, I can play anything. I don't know if he'll want to take a Cypher Killjoy, because whenever you bring that up to a lot of players, they'll tell you they'd rather just not play the game.
It's where like the incoming Counter-Strike players get stuck for a couple of weeks before they get moved on to Jet or something like that. I know how it is. All right, Renegades make a new acquisition here, player that frankly I don't know anything about, so I'm hoping Vans could maybe fill me in a little bit here about it. This guy called Jerk gets picked up.
Yeah, Jerk for me is somebody that's been around the scene for a bit, maybe not known as much in terms of like the tier 1 level. I think he's played a lot in a lot of tier 2s. If I remember correctly, he's made various teams with KP as well. So like looking at Reformed or maybe even before then. So has always had like a good mindset in terms of like developing teams with KP together and picking up young talent and then actually making a mark inside the tier 2 scene. So he's coming in right now to Renegades, replacing CP2. Another one of those players where unfortunately, maybe similar to Drake and our Draken, he's was playing a smoke right now, and they needed something else coming into the roster, right? So having an IGL always with strong legs as a Sky, what can now Jerk do with the team? Is he going to be able to play the Astra or the smoke as well? I'm assuming it's going to be that case. I think they've already been tested a bit in their last tournaments. They've played, I think it was like the Nursery Gamers Weekly, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that, or monthly or something like that. And they're still in it. They're in the top 16. I think it finished over the weekend. I'm looking forward to it.
Are they playing like the ninth monthly tournament?
That too, I think there was a lot actually going on in the tier 2 scene over the last weekend. Actually,
it's actually kind of banging with all of these monthlies.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if it's going to be like the change that's going to put Renegades back on the map of like when we first saw them in First Strike.
Right. But with the very aggressive style of play that doesn't make any sense right now.
Well, because when you're talking about that, it was Winsome and CP2 all the time that were like the names that you put on the board of being the aggressive players, right? So
it's like Bergie was ideal in that team,
yeah. So we'll have to see what happens. Actually, as we mentioned that means that CP2 even at some point played a Jet as well. So there's probably some flexibility that you're looking into Jerk going into this roster as well. Can he play the duelist? Can he also do smoke agents? We'll soon find out.
All right. Well, here's some more interesting news from NA. Recently, we heard that Exeter had departed, had parted ways, with We Did, and everyone was like, "Oh, what the fuck? What's going on here?" I think We Did is just a really popular personality, but Def joins Exeter, who I believe was recently known from Team Dignitas, and joins this roster. So that's pretty big. I think a lot of people were speculating on where Def would land. And Exet seems like a pretty decent spot. Oh my god!
If you haven't seen the clip, check the clip. I mean, the announcement from Exet's social media team on Twitter made a pretty cool video.
Is this the one that Upmine's in?
Yeah, exactly. You'll see Upmine as like the there you go, as like the Caesar calling it out in the arena for Gladiator. Pretty cool. And then you see Def come in or whatever. BCJ as a Silva. Throwing the shock darts. It was pretty cool, man. It's really entertaining.
I mean, I have to say, it makes sense as well, right? Get more EU players in those NA rosters. Gotta get the wins. How you do it?
That's how you do it, is it? Yeah, okay.
I don't think I recall any single European players in Sentinels when they won the finals quite convincingly.
Oh, we're talking about look
if you
again,
trace their,
okay.
if you trace their lineage back far enough, maybe. Yeah.
But
our players were jet lagged. What can I say?
Super happy with Def though. It's been a while since he actually was able to find a team since Dignitas kind of like folded their division for the men's side. They became rice and meatballs for quite a while as well, trying to figure out if they could stick together and get picked up, and it hasn't been the case, right? Def has also been not streaming as much. Som has been streaming and doing that nonstop in rank, looking for a team. So it's cool that one of the five has found a home. I'm hoping to see more from Rice and Meatballs, but Def, we've always known him as like that key Cypher lurk offensive player for at least I would recall in his playstyle. But you can see from this video right now, it seems that he's going to come into the team and go pretty much full-time Astra potentially, where We Did was doing it before. So that means potentially Aaron doesn't have to play an Astra on a map like Bind. He could stick over to Raze and figure out how that composition is going to evolve for Exet.
GeorgeCGed, who we'll have on a little bit later, did do a piece on this particular signing, and in that one, Def mentions that he's not planning to change roles really. Maybe just to try and improve his agent pool depth. So I mean, as an IGL, that's a pretty big job to be undertaking here, but I want to see if it's enough to give Exet that extra little push, because they've really been in the mix. They've been in contention for every single VCT tournament. What was so interesting about this team is that they always fought their way through the lower bracket almost every single time. They just lost round one and they started slapping people in the lower bracket and just kicking people out of tournaments. So
Sentinels Junior,
yes, in a way. And we had we obviously had their coach on, not so long ago, and we talked a little bit about their play style, the fact that they're very coordinated. So I'm interested to see what a new voice in the IGL role really adds to this team. But good luck to Exec, because I predicted them to make it a Masters, and that didn't go so well. I had high hopes.
Stage three.
Yeah, I had high hopes. All right, let's talk about something that I was really glad to see. Obviously, recently we know that Vision Strikers didn't quite make it to Reykjavik here, but Glow announces that, or it's announced rather, that Glow will be coming on board to coach this team.
Huge.
Welcome back.
I'm really happy to see him sticking around. A legend of the scene. Even if you erase the part of his brain that contains the knowledge on Valorant, from purely an FPS perspective, he's going to be able to do so much with these younger players that have come into Vision Strikers, and just molding them as a team. I think he's going to do a really fucking great job as a coach.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment, and now it just worries me at the same time too, though, because if we see Glow come back right now, and we're literally in the mid-month of June, when Solo is trying to figure out what he's going to try to do next with New Turn, and he wants to stick around the scene too, I hope that he's not going to go the same path as of yet as Glow, because I still want to see Solo compete with New Turn, and hopefully we see both Vision Strikers and New Turn over to Masters 3, because Korea now has two spots. Sorry, but back on Vision Strikers, I think this is a cool move for Glow. I guess at this point they didn't really have a coach for Vision Strikers. My biggest question mark is, what is Glow going to start bringing into the team? Is it, hey, let's continue to maintain our old school style of Omen into the lineup, or flash and dash and evolve those setups? Or will he finally have the time to figure out, okay, should we evolve with every type of meta that's moving into the future from now on? So will we see, going into stage 3, more Astra, more Viper? Or are they going to stick to what they have and play that comfortably? I'm excited and to see how that's going to work out for Vision Strikers. I think it's one of those moments for stage 3 where I might have to stay up and watch those games.
I'm particularly interested to see how Stacks develops as an IGL with now Glow, with at least his impact as a coach. I think that's going to be one of the more exciting prospects. And I think Vision Strikers and generally our teams that hail from Korea, but Vision Strikers particularly, have some really interesting takes on how to set up early round play and play around that utility. So I really looking forward to see what a veteran head like Glow is what kind of impact he's gonna have there. Because I think, is this not a 6-man roster? Is this a 6?
I think it's still 5.
So Stacks,
they brought in they brought in a new player recently.
They bring they
brought in a really young fragger, I think, like a new Jet, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I forgot the name. Let me look real quick.
Mako is he the newest player? Because it's Stacks, Zest, RB, Buzz.
Buzz, right? That's it. Buzz was the latest one that I saw, and so it looks like it's a 6-man roster, but
they brought on Buzz and Mako, who are pretty young guys. That's what I'm saying. Where I think there's going to be a lot of value there for Glow, because when you bring in new players, there's obviously the elements of shooting, knowing the game sense, and communicating with a team, practice. There's so much more that goes into just developing as a human being in these high intensity situations, practicing, making sure you get the most out of practice, the most out of your game days, even your routines in pregame. There's so much that has to go into that, and I think it takes someone with previous experience doing that and testing out what works and what doesn't to really be the guiding hand. Not to say that he'll come in and say, oh, this is how you do it, this is how I did it, so this is how you do it, but to help those players find what works for them, he's going to be invaluable. And then obviously game knowledge and all that sort of stuff, he's through the roof.
I think we've already seen a bit of that.
It's such a thing in Korean esports for ex-players to turn into really powerful coaches, especially in League of Legends. So
I from just tasting what Autumn and Zeta were able to bring from Korea to North America, it can only show positive things for Glow going into Vision Strikers as a head coach right now, in terms of that mentality that Mitch Man's talking about.
All right, so we've been waiting for a little while to see what Vision Strikers are doing. Not Vision Strikers, Heretics. So this European shuffle's been particularly interesting, and obviously Heretics benefited from that to some degree. They have just announced that VALORANTING, who I believe is a German player, he was on that Volvo Peak team, has joined this roster. So That means that now Team Heretics are complete, right? Theoretically, what? They've got Artist, Patatek, Valorante, LOL, and Monster? No, yeah. Monster? I don't think I know that player very well. Anyway, Mitch, what are your thoughts?
So I really like Valorant. I think he's fantastic. I watched a lot of Volvo Peak purely because we've scrimmed them a lot as well, but they have an Irish player. You know, it's incredibly rare to see an Irish player. So I was watching a lot of Jusu and getting a feel for, you know, getting ready to take out my Irish flag at the next event. But sadly, Volvo Peak disbanded. They got back together and they disbanded again. But this makes sense. You know, it's a good pickup statistically. Even if you just scout him, he is unbelievable. When you look at how he plays, I really enjoy watching his Rain and his Jet. I think that this is a guy that can definitely improve Heretics and bring them to a new level. A good pickup for sure. You mentioned Monster. He's actually kind of like, he was a real surprise to me that they pick him up, because nothing negative on Monster at all, but it's because he's not from like a reputable team. He's not from one that like did damage, made it deep into tournaments. He was playing on London United, and for them picking him up, this is a really, really big opportunity for Monster to shine. I'm super, super excited for what Heretics are going to be able to do in the future. The thing is, for me, Patatek and Artist coming in here, I don't know how that's going to work. And that's not foreshadowing a negative event. That's a genuine, I don't know how that's going to work.
So fit.
Because there's a lot of salt there already with some young players, impressionable players. And I don't know how that's how it's going to form up, but I'll say they're very well achieved. They've managed to rein in the salt throughout their stint on G2 for, you know, a year, dominating the majority of the big events towards at least the first 3 quarters. So they're very experienced players to have on board. I'm excited for the future. I think this Heretics is going to either be insane or shit. There's not really a middle ground for me.
They lose their VCT points because they can't retain a portion of their roster.
Yeah,
that's it. It's costing
so it's a long-term thing
massively.
That is actually, they had a considerable number of points, do they not?
They had a lot of points, first of all, but to be honest, I'd push it even further than that. If you look at the roster right now and say
70. Is
this beneficial for them? Like the changes that they have made, picking up Artist, Patatek, okay, I can see arguments for that. Monster, Valorant, those are big risks, and you're getting rid of Nuke. And I'm presuming that in there, when they got rid of Avova, Nuke, Pora, these guys go to G2. There was some form of a direct trade going on. Like they won't have made a shit ton of money off that, because of the trading nature. So with that in mind, this is something that normally, if I looked at that change, I'd say, oh, well, they're just kind of cashing out, right? They're selling Nuke, selling Pora, selling Avova, making bank, and they're happy to roll with that. But I don't think that's what this is, because of the people that they've lost. So now I'm kind of thinking, like, is this a better version of Heretics? And I really don't think it's better. And it's a risk if they can even reach the same level. So I'm not sure what the fuck is going on. But yeah, I hope for their sake, for Monster and Valorant, they seem like really good players. They seem like really good people. I hope they're able to find some success here and that this team does something for them.
Yeah, currently ranked 6th, according to VALORANT.GG in Europe. So yeah, we'll see if they maintain that standing. It definitely doesn't seem like as strong a team as at least was at their height. Obviously, they had players depart. They obviously had players that had sort of family issues and such, and had to step aside for a time. But yeah,
I mean, Nuke is one of the best players in the world. Like he is going to be one of the best players in the world by the end of the year. And I providing he gets to an international event, I think he's going to gain a lot of respect. So giving him up, honestly, I'd sell. I don't even care what the other 4 players are. I'm fucking selling them to keep Nuke on a roster. So the fact that they've made this roster change it's very, very strange. The only thing I can think is that the price of Artist and Patatek to take them, that they were undervalued being brought from G2 over, and that Heretics got a really good price for Nuke, Pora, and Vova, so that it was financially worth it. Other than that, they've made that decision in other conditions. They're morons.
It seems like it's a deal that G2 want more than Heretics.
100%.
If I'm honest with you. Yeah.
I feel out of this deal that G2 definitely spent more than Heretics would. That potentially by spending less or getting more money from G2 with Heretics, by having 2 players that are still potentially good in Artist and Patatek, then they could still have some decent results. And you build up from there. And if you're able to build those up, then you could potentially trade those players in the future for up and coming prospects that could actually help Heretics in the long run, especially with the bank that you just made. So I think this is like not necessarily a rebuilding process for Heretics. I think it's just an opportunity for them to think a little bit more longer term in terms of an organization. And I think it's a decent move if you want to think about it that way, because surrendering your points already right now at the same time, Mitch and Uber, it's like, if you're surrendering your points, then you're okay at that to not get immediate results right away, and you want to build a little bit longer term out of that. I think it's just like looking at a franchise for a sport that's going down the line of a few years before reaching the championships.
There's one more Masters event this year, right?
Correct.
Okay. So the opportunities to accrue these VCT points are running out, and they're running out pretty quickly.
Correct.
Even though, from what I understand, Berlin is going to be a larger event with more slots, and definitely more slots for EMEA.
Yeah.
You know, there's no guarantee that this roster gets you there. But I think getting in the room and being in Berlin is probably enough for this team at this stage.
Yeah.
And with Europe being as nascent as it is, and all these roster shuffles happening now, it's so volatile. You know, there's no reason why you can't look pretty good. But you're up against a backdrop of Fnatic. You're up against the backdrop of Liquid. FPX is still here. Gambit is still rolling. You know, you still got the Turkish teams making the salty run back. So there's still a lot of competition in that region.
You're hoping they all qualify so that eventually you can make it through by the last chance qualifiers, because the points won't make it this time.
I mean, banking on the last chance qualifiers is a terrible idea.
Yeah, I mean, like I said,
terrible.
short term goals. If it works out, then it's that. But again, if it's a long term process, then you could look down the line and not worry about this year.
One way to look at it from Heretics, because as perplexing a situation as it is, they've cut down on their running costs. Because if you look at VALORANT and Monster, they're not going to pay them as much as they pay Avova, Nuke, Pora. These guys have big paychecks, so they can afford to. If they're minimizing their running costs, they can afford to look further into the future. You know, if you're paying a team 3 times as much, you expect results 3 times faster. It's like
that's true.
Probably even more than that. So yeah, it's reasonable. I definitely think this puts Heretics in a worse spot for the next 6 months. But maybe these guys. There is potential there. I can say that hands down. Both of those players have got potential, but it's untested. And then bringing Artis and Patatek over. One interesting thing to me though was, I know at the time when David P was initially benched, his buyout was insane. I don't want to overstep on those kind of details, but it was a lot of money. And the fact that XL got him, to me, means that G2 really wanted to just get him off the books and, you know, get another player on the roster, not have to keep paying someone on the bench. And I think maybe the same thing has happened here, because when I think about the same situation, sure, it's a little further on than David P, so closer to the end of the contract means less money. But at the same time, when I think about Artis and Patatek, I think that's a pretty significant buyout. But at the same time, if G2 want to make those changes and they desperately want those players, they'll be willing to lower it down and pay an extra little bit of money. So I'd imagine business-wise, Heretics have gained quite a lot. But yeah, certainly team-wise, that looks like a really bad step for them.
Yeah.
Yep. That's it.
Maybe a situation they couldn't really have averted. They're just trying to make a bad situation a little bit better. Let's talk about. Let's jump back across to talk about NA again, because we've recently found out that Dabs, decorated Counter-Strike veteran and someone who was, you know, for a time working quite hard in the Valorant scene, has retired from professional play full stop, not just leaving this NRG team. Pretty disappointing, obviously, for fans of Daps and sort of the kind of legacy he's put together, especially on a NRG team that was looking really revitalized with Tex and Androids additions. It's a shame to see
still
him
continues,
go,
man. It's just sad. Like the once you're like, okay, they finally have the recipe. Oh no, 2 players drop. Oh no, here's another switch. Oh no, 1 player's retiring. But you know, you could still understand it from the point of view of Daps, right? He basically said, I'm not having fun playing the game anymore. If you don't have fun playing the game anymore, then that's valuable enough as a reason for you to stop playing. And I totally respect that at that point. Does he want to stay involved? We don't know yet. Does he want to go back to Counter-Strike? I don't know yet either. But I feel that potentially he's not having as much fun playing Valorant as he did with Counter-Strike in the past. I think the expectation of how explosive these executions are in a game like Valorant may not be on par of what his expectations were playing this game. So it's understandable at that point. I don't know what his next moves are going to be. I didn't have a chance to talk with him and ask, but we're just wishing him luck for the next endeavor.
Yeah, absolutely. That's obviously, your. I think Daps was IGLing on that team, right? So
Yep.
it's your veteran, it's your Cypher, Killjoy player, it's your IGL. So that's a pretty big loss for a team that never lacked like raw skill, right? Putting Tex and Android in duelist roles means your team has enough firepower to compete with the very best. And NRG actually did in some games sort of come quite close. So I'm very curious. I don't know just how many IGLs are floating around the free agent pool right now. Probably not a ton. So, wait, does Nature have a team yet?
Yeah, didn't he go to Gen G recently?
Oh,
Yeah,
there
he's
you
the one that
go.
went to Gen G, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, yeah. So I'd be interested to see how they replace a position like Daps's, but we'll find out.
Yeah.
The rumor mill has been churning out a couple of bits and pieces here. This one is we're talking about David P again because this is a European-based one. Apparently, David P, thanks Halo, always first on the site for stuff like this. Yeah, apparently XL are looking to replace both David P and Biggie. By the way, David P, initial member, the person we theorized that this team was going to be built around.
Yeah.
This was obviously, he was the first signing, right? So I'm thinking, okay, fair enough. I mean, we had questions about David P after his departure from G2 and definitely questioned the potential longevity of this roster. And, well, Mitch, looks like he hasn't quite panned out for this team.
I can't remember when that announcement was. I'm not sure if we just saw it on the tweet, but I didn't read it if we did. But I said I'd give it 2 months originally, and I think pretty close. Not bad. Fuck Biggie. I really hope that he gets kicked out and never is never involved in esports ever again. David P, he's a nice guy. He really is. But we all know the rumors behind the scenes. A little bit of a toxic player at times. Can be difficult to play with. I think that the team has maybe realized that and they want to move on. But as far as David P, I was never a fan of him in Counter-Strike. I gave him a lot of credit in Valorant. I gave him a lot of shit in Valorant first. Then I gave him a lot of credit, and he started to play really well on G2. I really enjoyed watching him play. Obviously, behind the scenes is what it is. I don't know any all too much about that, other than the rumors that everybody hears. But as a player, I still think he's actually got a lot of potential. It just comes down to finding a team that he fits with on a personality level. And as previously mentioned, Biggie can go fuck himself.
So I just want to let that pregnant pause just hang in the air for a little bit longer. That's what people do for me when I make a statement like that. Just let it breathe. I mean, this team, they played in Challenges 2, Europe, and they lost to Volvo Peak. And they've since then, I think they played in like the Valorant Open Tour France, I want to say. I remember watching Vitality lose to them, in fact. So, yeah, I think that this XL team has got a long way to go before they're ever really in the conversation for even maybe like a solid tier 2 team. I think according to VLR.GG, they're ranked 60th. And these changes, I'm quite sure, are going to necessitate quite an adjustment period for this roster. So, I'd say it was disappointing, but whatever. Whatever.
Yeah, pretty much.
This one's a head scratcher, though. It has been rumored that Marv has been practicing with Team Envy.
Yeah.
I think like this goes hand in hand with the rumor that Caboose might be on the way out of this team. So this is a weird one to me, especially considering. I mean, let's just put it out there. Marv has been implicated in some potential match fixing scenarios here, Van. So.
Yeah.
This is obviously, if you're Envy and you're trialing this kind of guy, you're doing it on the proviso that he's not going to be banned by the ESIC.
Yeah, no, I think it's the same topic as when Akis and Calypso also left Envy in the first place. They clearly said it's not about the whole match fixing kind of thing too. So let's say for now we keep the rumor as a rumor and we put that under the rug and we look at more of like the roster standpoint and how this looks like, right? So for FaZe, they've been trialing a shit ton of players for the past month or so, trying to find a new fifth. Jammies went in there. I think other players went in there as well to see if they have something that fits into their playstyle moving forward.
What are they looking
later on
to fit into their playstyle, man?
I mean, at this point, if you have Jammies that came in and we know him as a Viper, and you have Marv that's been playing Omen for the longest time, except for Phoenix, I think on Split, which was a long time ago, because that's usually a map that FaZe bans. Then you're looking for a controller player. And I think hand in hand, if you're taking out that piece away from Marv and you're trying it in to Envy, when Caboose is also potentially stepping down, where he's mixing the roles of sometimes he's a smoke agent, sometimes he's not, and sharing that responsibility with Mummy. And at that point, I think it's a good move for Envy, because if you have somebody that's going to be sticking onto the smokes every single round, every single map into Marv, then that allows for Mummy to open up definitely a lot more as a jet operator, which is something that, you know, continues to be very vocal and adamant that Mummy is very comfortable and loves to play that duelist side. But he is just going to switch to any role that he needs to play to make sure that the team works, right? So I think now it's more on a roster change, unfortunately, that they've been trying to fix for the longest time for Envy. That's going to be the solution instead of an agent change.
We know that Caboose had been playing a bunch more Omen as of late. You know, it wasn't always something that you know, he was playing, but more so recently. So I guess that's a fair move. I think that definitely hurts FaZe losing Marv. I think Marv was one of the more solid, one of the more consistent players on that roster. On a roster that features a lot of individuals that were you know, as we knew in the past, really quite, you know, streaky, I guess is a good way of putting it. Marv,
and that's
Marv
another
definitely
IGL
seemed
god.
like that consistency. Yeah. Well,
sort of, right? Sort of.
Yeah, but like talking with like Baby Bay as well. Like he was always pretty enigmatic about how the IGLing worked on that team, and it was pretty, you know, off the cuff kind of stuff. So I mean, it definitely hurts them for sure. Yeah. Again, I go back to the same question. I don't really have a free agent list in front of me. You have to pay for those if you're coaches. But I'm not
looking
really
at you,
sure.
Hitbox Val.
Yeah, as like an Omen player, I guess. Well, you don't even necessarily, it can't just be an Omen player. It has to also be an Astra player that you need to look for to replace an individual like Marv. And I wonder, I wonder how that fits into everything for FaZe Clan. I wonder also what they're looking for, because remember that was the team that were like full Smeeg all the time, and then we were like, oh my god, they're winning stuff because they've managed to find this middle ground. You know, we brought Trippy on board and we sort of grilled him like, okay, well, what's changed? What's allowed you as a team to start to really get these results? And then all of a sudden, their last chance to sort of qualify for Masters, or rather to be part of Masters, they just disappear. And we're just, you know, in that qualification for Iceland, they were.
Didn't it disappear to version 1 though? I'd be okay disappearing to version 1 at that point.
I guess.
Right?
I guess. From what I know, geez, how far back do I have to go now to think about what? No, didn't they lose to?
I know they had to play
T1?
version 1 like maybe 2 or 3 times in these VCTs, right? So there was one of them where version 1 got their revenge back onto FaZe.
Yeah,
I don't know
that was in the challenges, stage 2 challenges 1. I got it right here actually. Stage 2 challenges 1 open qualifier. They lost to version 1, but then in stage 2 challenges 2, the closed qualifier, presumably they lost to T1 in a best of 3. T1. So yeah, and that was a series where I think Marv didn't actually play any Omen, because they played Icebox, and Marv plays obviously the Sage on Icebox as he always does, and then he ended up playing Sky on Bind. So yeah, they actually won that one. So I don't know. That's interesting. I just really haven't heard too much. As a fan of Valorant, who sort of was very involved during Masters and tends to dip in and out because of my other work commitments. It's just not, the FaZe name was not one I heard come up a whole bunch.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this Poise news though, because from what we understand, Poise is now sort of taking a step back. It's rumored to be taking a step back inside the C9 roster, and Zeppa's practicing with them. I think this is another GeorgeCGed's bomb. He never played for C9, right? Like to this day, Zeppa hasn't actually played for them, did he?
He was trialing for C9 in the Counter-Strike scene, and I think was like part of that roster for like the Colossus that was trying to get built by Henry G. But I think he was mainly joining as not necessarily a trial. I think for Zeppa in general, it's like it's a player that has so much potential that he joins a roster and they want to give him time to like simmer into the team right before he could actually start playing. I think he's played like maybe 1 or 2 official matches. I think there's one that he played on Inferno where he kind of popped off. But then also going to Cloud9 for Valorant for the past few months already, right? He's been signed to that roster. He personally said, like, I'm not ready to play this game yet anyways. Like, I just want to practice right now, get used to the agents, get used to the abilities, get used to the synergy, and then move in. And now it seems, according to George, that he's starting to find his footing and get comfortable with that right now, where he could now potentially play whatever role that Cloud9 needs for him to play. And honestly, I think this is going to be quite scary to have Zeppa play right now with Cloud9, with the expectation that I have of him from Counter-Strike.
I love how thrifty Jack Etienne is, just folding his Counter-Strike, his failed Counter-Strike project, just folding it into his Valorant team bit by bit. Like first was Floppy and now it's Zeppa. Fucking hell, man. I mean,
It's a
shit.
origami page is going to turn into a crane, and then you'll find so much success into Cloud9 Valorant.
Okay, yeah, if you say so, my guy. We heard that Rara was also trialing for this team, I think, but I don't think we know too much. I'm fucking hell. Rara's trialing for every team. I feel like every day of the week I hear that Mr. Giesbrecht has been trialing for another fucking team.
I think there was
all right,
Energy, right? If I'm not mistaken. So.
Mhm.
Yeah, so he's been trying out as well for different teams, trying to figure that. Well, I mean, it's another one of those rice and meatballs, trying to figure out the Dignitas players roster that has a lot of potential that was looking for a home when they kind of like folded. Because I think one of those players was also Mata, that was probably the first one that got picked up into a team. But for the rest, they're still trying to find a home. But when there's not that many opportunities, not that many orgs that are trying to make it into that top 16, top 8 that are making it right now. And the ones that do make it have like a solidified roster already. It's really hard to get in right now. And you kind of see like the shift of where Valorant's going. Where it first started, there was like so many opportunities, and now you're starting to see those doors close. So it's starting to get a lot more competitive between the free agency players as well to try to find a spot home.
I got fully confused for a second there when you said it's one of those rice and meatballs. I forgot there was a team for a minute.
The team, yeah, the Dignitas.
Is that an expression? Have I like missed out on something here? You have rice and meatballs, you know, that's how it is.
I mean, we're all talking about food
and
at the beginning of the fucking
things.
stream. I'm fucking hungry now, you know?
Yeah. rice, meatballs, and Viper post plants is the staple diet in North America these days. Yeah. All right, enough about Papega NA roster rumors. Let's talk a little bit about some of the stuff coming out of the developer over this last week or so. So, obviously, the 1 year anniversary is upon us, or rather, is sort of come and gone. I'm sure many of us fondly remember the first time that we booted up the game or got to play in the closed beta. Brazil's been kind of popping off with in terms of their celebration here. They have a concert, legitimately like a concert for the 1 year anniversary of Valorant. I have no idea who these people are because their faces are covered, but which is great. Don't get me wrong, absolutely great. Yeah, I mean California's reopened today, and I'm terrified. So this is very good.
Look and look at the setup. They all respect the 2 meters and stuff like that too. So this is pretty cool. But
socially distancing on the stage. Watch it, Mr. Rhythm.
It's like there's not enough room for you, singer. You're gonna have to like just stick to the camera just to respect the 2 meter rule. But yeah, apparently our producer Ian watched it and he was like, it's actually a pretty sick concert. I think this was actually developed even by the Valorant Brazilian team, more than just the Riot team in Los Angeles, right? So they had different divisions around the world. So they're really focused on celebrating the 1 year in Brazil, which is I'm totally for it because the scene in Brazil, it's fucking huge. It's amazing. Yep. They have
this
the
in
best following
Korea,
right ever.
Get me this in Brazil. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's pretty good for them and for Turkey right now, in my opinion, are definitely like the viewership that really like pushes a lot more for Valorant. Except if you see Sentinels continue to move forward right now, you have a lot of NA fans for sure that brings the numbers in. But good props to Brazil to really include this whole festival of like music, art, and whatnot with Valorant.
Whoever designed that part was on acid.
Obviously this is behind the scenes of the actual concert itself, I think. So if you get to see the whole thing, it probably makes a ton more sense.
A bit more sense, yeah.
A lot of. I don't think they're wearing hazmat suits for medical reasons. But obviously it's not a live. It's not a live event. So
why was there? What the fuck's his name? Not Zangief, not Sagat. The final boss for Street Fighter. He was literally in that last Bison. Bison was in there at the end. I don't know why he was in there.
Yeah, not sure. But I think this was specifically like a Valorant thing. So I don't know. You know what? Brazil's doing a great job. That's fine. There was this there was this awesome cinematic. Like I don't think it was actually necessarily made by anyone at Riot. And maybe it was maybe
I think that was the Brazil team as well.
Right. This was sick. I mean, in the wake of the cinematic that we saw featuring sort of Viper, Killjoy, and Phoenix, this was really cool. I mean, it didn't do too much more than show us a day in the life of Raze, but it was awesome. I love this shit.
Yeah, dude. Well, I mean,
now,
we're fun about more stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. I watched it, I think, before they got subtitles on it, and I was still just glued to it. I was like, this is dope. just to what does she sound like in Portuguese? Like, you know, like what happens here? Because it's fascinating.
You should check on the Portuguese caster sometimes. It's a different experience. Let's put it
I
that
know.
way.
You know what I love is that
I love it.
I love that, like, people are like, I wish English speaking casters cast like Portuguese casters, and I'm like, you don't fucking want that, because I did that for the first 2 years of my career when I was a shit caster, and people
Everybody
said
does
I was a
that.
shit caster.
Everybody does that and they hate it.
everything, but it's
You have-
like
Sorry,
go ahead,
I was
go
gonna
ahead.
say you have good casters right now that are aspiring casters that are doing the hype casting, and then the whole chat are already of like fucking shits on them because they actually are too hype, and it's
exactly
like make
I
up your
don't
fucking
like-
mind or just enjoy the different styles.
I will say, when I listen to the Japanese though, oh my god, those guys go crazy. It's
Dude.
insane. It doesn't matter what's happening. I feel like I'm on the edge of my seat the second I open the
Yep.
stream. I'm like, it's energy. Energy's
Listen,
everywhere.
Japanese,
I almost
Korea,
got-
Brazil.
I basically got booted out of the League of Legends scene for getting too hype in laning phase, because I fucking loved it. It wasn't even the fact I was like, fucking hell, here comes a level 3 train. Why flash burn shit? Like, I loved it. It was like, this guy is getting excited for first blood all the time. He's shit. I'm like, what? Like, just let me, can you just let me be
Enjoy
excited?
myself,
Yeah,
man.
man.
Come
Yeah,
on.
fuck me. It's not even. And so then when I cast League from then on, I had to like white knuckle the table, like, don't get excited about this shit. Even if you fucking enjoying
Yeah.
yourself, you can't.
That's
just
the
like,
worst
"Ah,
thing,
fuck this
man.
shit."
When someone's just like, actually, that's not that interesting, or that's not that's not that rare. That happens every game. You're like, bro,
Yeah.
why don't you shut the fuck up? How about that? Hey,
Yeah.
like if we're having some fun, let's have some fun. You know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're the same people who, out of the other side of their mouth, to say, "Oh man, I wish English-speaking casters were like these Portuguese or Spanish ones." Like, I'm like,
Telling you,
"Fuck
man,
you."
it's all about the accent. It's all about the accent.
Yeah, it's
You-
not.
if
It's
you
all about
want
the
to be
fact they
hype, you
can't
can have an
fucking
accent.
understand what they're saying. That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's I swear to God, that's what it is. Still though, I mean, I mad respect to Portuguese and foreign language speaking commentators, because I'm sure what you do is not easy, but I'm just jealous. I wish I could do it as well.
I'm gonna start casting
WW
Vietnamese.
Fest.
Fuck it.
Yeah, I mean, that is a
Hi,
language, right?
Maker.
Yeah,
Hi.
because the tonality of
Yes.
Vietnamese is so important that like you can say the same spelling multiple different times with different inflection, and it means something completely different.
word. Yep.
That may be one of the most complex languages I've ever encountered. It is.
Even I still have a
Absurd.
hard time fucking speaking it with my wife.
Oh man, I mean, anyone who's bilingual is honestly, I stand. I fucking love bilingual people, man. It's insane. Let's talk about
Adore
WW
me, I'm
Fest here.
trilingual.
Yeah, you okay, yeah. I guess that is true.
Everyone
I'm
but you,
trilingual.
Vance. Come on.
Yeah, there's
Uh,
exceptions to the cases for every case.
You kind of made this a bit harder for me now. No, I do.
Cast in
I fucking
Irish
love it.
sometime. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I try and tell people I'm bilingual and I speak Australian, but people don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, people don't really take it seriously. Shame. So WW Fest is back. First time it was on the show, we talked about it as like a cultural, pop culture. It featured streetwear, featured art, featured music, a ton of stuff that me as basically a troglodyte couldn't really appreciate. But I have to say, it's been really interesting sort of checking it out a little bit more now that I'm more aware of it, and it's dope. I'm kind of loving it. I love the art side of stuff as well, because I always wonder like where these cards in Valorant come from, right? And there's so much of the lore that's yet to be unpacked. So yeah, I'm digging it. Have you checked it out at all, lads?
Dude, the music was sick. I was watching a stream because we talked about it too last week when Ryan was on the show, and I was like, yeah, we actually did some clips for Crown for WW Fest as like, why do we love Valorant? And they were gonna like show these clips. So at some point I did see Banks on there, but like I never went on. Ryan Central never went on. So I think it was just like a filler video. But overall, like I think that the art was fucking amazing because they did like a Euro graffiti and they did a Phoenix graffiti. Although I feel that the guy kind of missed the mark because he understood Phoenix. He just drew a Phoenix instead of like looking at Phoenix like the character.
Somehow
or the
I'm okay
agent,
with that.
but-
Yeah, I think I said at the time it looked like fucking forks or some shit. You know, which is maybe someone just told him, "Hey, draw Phoenix." He's like, "Okay, fuck it."
Yeah. Easy money. Let me do it. But the Euro is fucking sick. I think that was pretty cool. Madion, I think, was also spinning for one of the
Love it.
DJs. More Kismet, they were DJing. That was really fucking cool stuff as well. I think the event overall was amazing, man. So I'm looking forward for the next one. Apparently it's June 25th in 10 days. So that's a good time to watch it just before Act 3, I think, or Season 3 starts. and then going into stage 3.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm looking forward. Is that your laundry on the couch behind you, Vance?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm adulting, you know.
You're such
Toronto
a bachelor, bro.
Yeah, I know. It's like an ultra.
It's all esports merch.
Esports.
It's
So
literally all
ultra
esports merch.
N-box.
There's a phase hoodie back there.
Offline TV, phase in the back.
Okay,
Dude,
dude.
listen,
All
I
right.
spend money on clothing. It's expensive, but I like supporting esports, and I like supporting the esports org.
bougie.
So I just buy it, and I use it to
It's
work
kinda
out. I
Gucci,
use it
it's
to
kinda
go out.
Gucci, yeah.
No Gucci. I spend more money
Oh.
on esports merch than Gucci stuff. So
Jeez. All right. Well, yeah. Van Silly, community guy. You gotta love him. Here you go. We had some changes to format in the EMEA region. That this has come directly from Riot. So Mitch, this should tickle your pickle. Tell us a little bit about this.
Oh, it has tickled every part of me, I'll tell you that. We are finally getting double elimination. We're getting 2 streams. We're getting everything, man. More coverage for games, more competitive integrity. It means the best teams are going to make it through, so NA can finally get shit on. Everything about this is positive.
or just more
I'm
teams to
so happy.
lose. Bring
Yeah.
FPX in to lose.
All
Bring
right,
Arsenal
okay. yeah,
Gaming to lose.
You
Bring
say that to
Footballers
Angel's
to
face.
lose.
Good luck.
Sure,
though.
yeah, you
I
wouldn't
will
it to
not
Angel
say that
Lion,
to
bro.
anybody's face.
Angel's
They're
Jack. You wouldn't
jacked
say that
online.
to him at LAN.
No, honestly, I think this is a great move, and I think rumors are as well is that it's going to be good for the town as well, because you might have potentially like an actual analyst desk for all of this as well. So it's going to develop the scene for talent as well. So that's going to be pretty cool, especially for Europe, because I am going to be under the impression that we're still going to be region locked, which I'm totally okay for, because I'm okay of seeing more talent coming out into the scene. So to see like potentially more of Zech or anybody else that's aspiring to get into the scene for Valorant in Europe,
Ryan,
hopefully
dickhead.
they'll get the
Yeah.
yeah.
That
For
Ryan
Ryan's
guy.
not too bad. I
Him
mean,
on
he's
for
okay.
a
you
day
know.
or two, I
guess we'll
suppose.
give him a
Yeah.
job.
I mean, he already did like 10 minutes of Masters 3 to cover for Veli, so that's good enough. Or Masters 2, sorry, for Veli. So that's
Because
good enough.
Veli up and fucked off to London, which is just incredible. Veli is just so good at. Veli is so incredibly good at just not doing stuff. He's so good at it, man.
We missed you, fans. We missed you there, bro. I'm
Yeah,
looking forward to the next one if we're
Hopefully,
all gonna be there,
hopefully.
or Berlin, or whatever it is. Because
Yeah,
we had a
man.
good time. Me and Belly had a good time in London. It's a fun. We
Dude.
went in a boat on a lake. It was great.
Stop
I
giving
mean, I
the
enjoyed
FOMO.
following. I followed his Twitter feed while he was out there. I mean, he definitely had me at the
The
blood
blood
pudding in the
sausage.
styrofoam
Yeah.
container, like getting in a full. He ordered a full English in a fucking styrofoam container. Like Jesus Christ, that's ridiculous.
And then gave out about it and said it was shit. Like, oh wow.
I mean,
what a surprise, bro.
Is this
Order some Mexican food and tell us how shit Mexican
Yeah.
food is. Like, it's
Literally,
lunch. Come
be
on.
in Vegas. Be in Vegas where he lives. Order fucking Mexican food in a styrofoam container and see if it's good. I guarantee it'll be fucking
Yeah,
dog shit.
yeah.
It's hotel
Jesus.
food. It was hotel food. Hotel.
Oh,
It was
I-
COVID
yeah, I mean,
times.
either way. Oh yeah, he might have had to quarantine. I think for
He
a
did,
while
yeah,
anyway.
yeah.
So, okay. So that's obviously great news for Europe in general. Brings them more in line with the format. I guess I would have been interested in understanding maybe why it happens now, or like what it was that prompted this. Does it say that? Does it actually say why or what prompted this decision from the EMEA team? I
Well,
don't think so.
I
Right?
don't think so.
No.
I can tell you that the decision, it's, from what I understand, it's not so much the decision, it's been a matter of logistics that have been holding us back. The conversations I've had with Riot from day one, they've wanted to do double elimination across the board. They know it's
Okay.
better. They've wanted to do BO3s. Like, I mean, right at the start, we had fucking BO1 single elim. It's like,
Yeah,
what
it's
the fuck is
bad.
going on?
It's really bad.
Like top 8,
So-
top 4, some shit like that.
Yeah, it was ridiculous, man. So like they've known. Well, I think the first time was just a fuck up. After that, they've known what the best thing to do was. They've done it obviously globally in a bunch of different regions, but it has been a matter of logistics of finding the days to do it, the budget to do it, to have the broadcasts, of rights, all this sort of stuff. Like a combination of a bunch of different issues. I don't claim to fully understand what was going on. Obviously, it's a lot of corporates, a lot of suit stuff. But.
Yeah.
Finally, I couldn't give a fuck anymore. I'm just so happy that it's finally fixed and we get to
Yeah.
have some real games and a lot of real games.
I'm looking forward to it as well. It means there's much more to watch in the mornings when I have to
Means
look
more
after
money,
little
so
tyke.
I'm happy.
Yeah, is that exactly right? More day rates, baby.
More broadcast,
Making
more money.
rain,
Let's go.
motherfuckers. That's good. I think as Ryan pointed out, I think there is definitely some more talent in EU that can get involved, and there's tons you can unearth as well. There's tons of casting talent in EU that is there. I think there's much more in NA. It's definitely more bottlenecked in North America.
Yeah,
but it's a good opportunity to get more people involved, which is always great.
It was more bottlenecked in North America just because there was more events, and props to like not necessarily more events, but I just feel like props to NSG to like expand it a little bit more to give those opportunities, right? Like, hey, we're going to be covering group stages, we're going to be covering this and that and that. When you're looking at VCTs or in Europe in general, even for First Strike, you didn't have any coverage until you got into like the top 16,
That's
top
right.
8. So that was another reason
broadcast.
why you didn't get on, like these aspiring casters didn't get any opportunities to get themselves known to eventually make the bigger stages, right?
That's true, but also if they don't have the money to pay casters properly, then they shouldn't broadcast it. And for that level of event, in my opinion, you have to. If it's like something smaller or like a monthlies or nights or something like that, then maybe it's a different story. But if it's VCT, you're working with a prestigious product and you don't have budget room to pay commentators properly, then
two sides of the coin for sure.
Let's talk about something that's maybe less nuanced than that one, because we got some shenanigans going on. First of all, I mean, I would understand this if this had come from like any other organization, or like any organization maybe with less backing or less sort of corporate involvement or less of a reputation established over other esports. This is fucking OG. This is Team OG Valorant. And this, I believe, was also more reporting from initially, it came from Upcomer and also from Nell. But OG's Valorant team was to sign Portuguese player David Fizzy. I'm not going to try and pronounce that, and a Finnish player before OG pulled out of the deal. So they signed 2 other people instead. Now, the problem is that both Fizzy and Shed, or however you pronounce it, they were told they'd be joining the team. And Mitch, what I understand is it wasn't just that they'd be told they'd be joining the team. There was other stuff going on. Like there was onboarding actively occurring for these 2 players.
Now, from their perspective, I do not blame them in the slightest. There's always going to be in these situations, there's always going to be people. And for me, almost a lot of the time, it's like a gut response. I'm like, oh, well, they should have fucking known. Or, oh, if you didn't have a contract, you should have known. It's not secure. But I can tell you from my insight from working within a team, when somebody tells you, hey, yeah, we're 100% going to take you, and you ask them, so can I leave my team? And I tell my team, like, we're good. Yeah, we're going to pick you up. Then you start talking, oh, what's your jersey size? Yo, what keyboard do you want from our sponsors? You start all this kind of conversation. You've been trialing successfully for a couple of weeks. Everything's going well. And it's a reputable organization like OG. This is not somewhere that you sit down and go, I ain't doing shit till I get a contract. You trust them. Of course you trust them. And because this shit doesn't happen. What the fuck are they doing? Like, the problem is, and I understand Fizzy's position more. I've read more about it. I'm not 100% sure on Shed, but I know for Fizzy, he was on a team. He was told that he should tell the team that he's leaving. He was told to leave his team by OG because he was 100% getting picked up. He went to OG, and then they're like, actually, we're going to pick someone else up. So they have just fucked this guy for absolutely no reason. That's despicable behavior from them.
Shed got shit on. But I feel that OG is with Red Bull, right? So I'm assuming at this point when you're running like an organization such as OG, you kind of have like multiple staff in there. So I think there's not necessarily a fault on the side of the players, but I would say that there's a slight fault because from my personal experience, just like Pulse Invitational and casting Valorant, I trusted into Pulse because they've paid over in their summertime event and all the teams got paid and whatnot. Talent got paid too, not a problem. So we move over to September and it's like, okay, well, we need to bring this talent in. And Vance, can you do this? This is going to be this much. And I trusted them because they paid me in the past. Why wouldn't they pay me today or on the next event? And that's exactly what happened. They kind of disappeared. I didn't get paid. Again, props to NSG for covering all of that for the talent and observers. But also, I think for OG, definitely more at fault at this point too, is that if there's more, if it's a bigger organization, is there more people involved at this point? And there's been some communication that has slipped between the cracks, such as the person that's in charge of talking to the players to say, hey, what peripherals do you need? What's your size and all that to take care of that is their sole responsibility, while the other one that has to take care of the contract has not been talking with the person that's talking about the peripherals, right? So there's probably miscommunication there too. that makes it look bad for OG overall for sure. They definitely have to look into that into the future.
Yeah, the peripherals and stuff is a conversation because indeed, for example, in Alliance, the person who's handling that a lot of the time won't be the same person who's hiring you
Doing
or who's in
contracts,
charge
exactly.
of if you're on the team or not. But those sponsor obligations and stuff aside, that's sort of like that would be bad if that's what happened. If they were like, yeah, we're gonna trial you, and by the way, what's your jersey size and all this? Whoever told him, yo, yeah, tell your team that you know
can leave your
you're
team.
leaving,
Leave,
you're coming
yeah.
to us. It's their fucking fault. Like the fact that they have told him, it doesn't matter if it's a player, if it's management, I don't give a shit who it is. If you tell that dude 100% to give up with the team that he's on, like that could be a job that he could have been getting paid for that. From what I understand, it doesn't seem like he was if he was able to just walk away. But even still, that could be an opportunity that he moves on with his career. Like they've just fucked this guy over.
Yeah.
It's obviously a bad thing by itself that he's not going to get to play on the team. The fact that now he doesn't have a team, or if he goes back to them, there's going to be some bad blood there and stuff. That's just, it's unacceptable. Whoever was the
100%.
one that
told him that he should
informed
leave
him of
probably
that,
wasn't his
their fault.
responsibility, and he fucked up at that point.
Well,
Or he or
okay,
she.
so
yeah.
obviously, agreed. This wouldn't happen if like he had a contract with his previous team and then would have one with OG and stuff like that. But it's pretty Wild West kind of stuff, I think. I also know that Shed guy was also trialing with G2 for a bit because Pitt was not scrimming with them. I think that was reported by Halo Thoughts. So that might have played into him not ultimately getting put on that team. But I think it's pretty cut and dry. Like you shouldn't have done that. And like someone from OG can quite easily come forward and be like, yeah, it was miscommunication. You know, I wasn't never going to pick him up, but the guy said he was going to pick him up. And then what are you fucking supposed to do? You're like, well, okay. I mean, it's just weird.
Just fix your protocols, fix your steps into making sure
just-
that the communication.
That's what I want to see, though. I want to see someone say like,
point.
"Oh, my bad for maybe fucking your career. We'll work on this and make sure it doesn't happen in the future." That's not that fucking hard. It really isn't that hard to commit to that and say you were wrong, especially as they were quite clearly fucking wrong. Unless they think they didn't tell him that, unless he's lying, in which case they can come out and say that. But I've heard fuck all. So
this team has not had a good start in Valorant, guys. This team, well, didn't they drop like most of their roster? Isn't it only Unco and Fick on this team right now? Is that it? I'm just saying, sort your shit out. These the three guys on this team are three guys I know personally. Damon, fix your shit. All right, enough of this fucking nonsense. I don't get it. Okay, let's talk about more papegery, shall we? We have some more updates from what's going on with the SpikeGG. So sporadically, Artur Minikov has sort of okay, all right. So this is so cringe. All right, so obviously, for some reason, Artur decides to pitch a battle with none other than Yinsu Collins, which is just this is a really bad idea, considering that all else aside, she worked for him and has inside information about how he deals with his employees. Like you are dealing with the employee. So he went off. He basically he was extremely rude to multiple people and was just like, I'm going to delete the socials and it's always like, yeah, I've been wasting my time. It's you guys are the problem. You're all hypocrites, which is just the same insult that he's been slinging around a whole bunch. This is one here. I think he'd arbitrarily, I mean, this is how you look at our ratio this guy got, but he arbitrarily responds to something that Yinsu said, which had nothing to do with him. And I had nothing to do with him. He's just like, oh, like, shit. Okay, I'll tell you. What do you think is going to happen? Well, you're going to get piled on, mate. People, already, because he was already saying like, my story's coming. Yeah, all these hypocrites are going to get exposed. The story never came, but no one wants to hear the story. No one wants to hear your story, Artur. People are not interested in hearing that story. I know you feel like you need to tell your story. And if it helps you feel better, if you can get it off your chest, then so be it. But you have to understand that this is not something that people are waiting for. People are not waiting with bated breath to hear your side of things. They're waiting with bated breath to see you pay your employees. So, he mentions this a lot that he's, okay. So, and this is more recent. This is during the 12th. So it's a few days ago. So 2 esports businesses are in the final stages of acquiring the SpikeGG. Okay. So this acquisition, as far as we know, has been happening for a couple of weeks. He also says at the bottom of this that he's been reflecting on his mistakes and will post something after the sale. I've seen this before from Artur. I literally saw him behave the same way about when Envision Esports collapsed, he said the same thing. He was like, he kind of blamed it on, the community. He blamed it on Blizzard, and then he just sort of fucked off and said that he got burnt, and it was him that put himself out there and he got burnt. So, yeah, so he did not change, but made adjustments and personal decisions that are putting him in the right direction for his health. Don't know what that means. Obviously, he definitely, he's still talking about publishing something, which is great, but I don't think that if it makes him feel better, then fine. But I don't think anybody is particularly, waiting for that.
I couldn't fuck what he has to say. You look at what he wrote May 31st. Last revision for the acquisitions of the Spike and signatures should happen tomorrow. In worst case scenario, payment owed to staff under contract by the site will happen even if the deal does not go through tomorrow. Didn't fucking happen. So at this point, he's just spouting bollocks out into the air, hoping that someone believes him or thinks, oh yeah, what a nice guy. Fuck it. You can tell your story. Like, hey, I'd be interested in reading his side of the story, what went wrong and all that, even in spite of it, just to have that information, that side of the story to make the judgment on. I'd like to hear that after he fucking pays the people he's owed, that he said like 10 different times, oh, I'm going to pay them tomorrow. No, I don't care what happens. I'm paying them tomorrow. And then tomorrow fuck all happens. And it's like, I'll pay them the next day. Like, dude, just do your shit, man. It's really not that fucking hard. Or don't lie about it. Is this the worst thing? Like we had this conversation last time I was on. I said it was the longest I waited was 1 year and 2 months to get paid for an event. The thing that pissed me off was it wasn't not having the money. It was being told, oh, next week. Yeah, it should be next week. Like, if you're not going to pay me next week, don't tell me you're going to pay me next week. Because now I'm budgeting for having that money next week, and all of a sudden I don't have it, and we're in a bit of a fucking pickle.
That was me with the troll challenge over like the fucking summertime. I think it took like 6-7 months before that was actually done and completed when we did the first Valorant days in the summertime too. But yeah, for me personally, like I spoken to Minak yesterday, actually reaching out, and then we chatted for a bit. I think he needed that break, just breathe a bit too at the same time. Now he says he feels better, which is good. I believe that it's genuine what he's saying. For apologies for lashing out, but of course the main issue is still there, right? Arthur, at this point, we haven't seen the money yet for the staff. Where you're pretty adamant that you actually want to support the scene in the past, supporting me when I wasn't getting paid by Pulse. We need you to do the same thing right now for your staff. And the last update as well is from 2 days ago. None of the staff have gotten paid yet, right? So hopefully with what he's saying right now, with these two these two potential offers are on the table. First one is signed. Finally, we'll get the money and everybody gets paid. Hopefully that's going to be happening soon. But let's hope that the next tweet or the next message is going to be deal done. The fucking meme of the contract signed from fucking hello Arthur. Hey, that's ironic. Is his name Arthur, the meme for the
Arthur?
It's
yeah,
Arthur,
he's
right?
An aardvark, not a French Canadian guy, but yeah. yeah.
Anyways,
there's some similarities, I guess. Yeah, they both have.
We get that
I don't think I've ever seen Arthur the Aardvark wear a T-shirt that says "I don't give a fuck." But these are just to explain to everyone, these are conversations that VALORANTing has reached out to these individuals that are associated with the SpikeGG in some capacity and have asked them for official responses. They have, to my understanding, they have agreed to go on the record with these. So this is Isolate. This is a new employee. This guy wanted to be involved and sort of realized there was probably maybe an opportunity to help out here.
On a voluntary basis.
Yes, yeah, that's right. Voluntary basis. Isolate doesn't know too much about it at this time. But yes, I think from what I understand, it's that it's part of the deal to get everyone paid. So I guess Artur is going to pay. It's going to get people paid through the acquisition deal or pay them as a result of the revenue generated by that. Everyone's on a volunteer basis. They're all fine with that until the new sponsors / partners come in. And I assume that there's a time on that. They're not going to do this indefinitely.
Yeah.
They want the website to continue and succeed. So this last sentence is a bit concerning. We all want the website to continue and succeed and understand that right now things are trying to be made right. Although Artur is making it more difficult than it should be. Now, I mean, I don't know if Isolate understands how the knows too much detail about the business side of it, but he's not the first person to say this. On the side of Joseph, who is the person who's the interim CEO, I guess, of the SpikeGG, speaks to Joseph regularly. got an investor to fly him out and have a meeting about buying the company and paying the staff, but it fell through as Artur wanted more money. But he said he promised that he'd get paid as soon as the acquisition goes through. So again, that's another person saying he's being a little bit tricky. So we asked him, we were trying to find out if, Joseph, obviously the guy who's, the interim guy, is acting in good faith in terms of trying to get everyone paid as well. But from Andeep's answer, we can see that Joseph's actually also not being paid either. So I'm sure Joseph wants to get paid, and then maybe everyone else. But I can understand he's maybe looking after number one, because in this kind of situation where people are all getting fucked over, there tends to be that survival instinct, like, wait, I need to get paid, and which is fine.
Yeah.
But speaking broadly here, it does seem like there has been efforts to, sell this company, but Artur is being a little bit difficult about it. Now, he's a businessman, not me. It's not really up to me to decide whether that is reasonable or not. But you cannot tweet stuff, Mitch, like, oh, well, yep, deal will be done tomorrow. Even if it's not, everyone's getting paid. It's like, well, show me the money.
Yeah,
show me
you're
the money.
The one that stops the deal and then still doesn't follow through on what you said you would do, even if the deal doesn't happen. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think the other side of it is like, there's a part of me instantly that's like, well, maybe the money wasn't enough that he could pay off all the people. So if he took the money, but that's definitely not what it is. It's, on one hand, he's like, well, it's worth this much and I want this money because it's his money. But at the same time, if not getting the full value of your shares in the company means that you can pay your employees that you promised a certain amount of money and continuously promised you would pay and then didn't pay them, that's kind of like a little bit of a tax for being a cock that you now have to kind of pay. But apparently he's not going to do that. And I mean, again, we don't fully understand the situation, but it's like the benefit of the doubt isn't really there anymore. It's kind of burnt a lot of that up.
Yeah. That good faith that you would hope to receive from a community in terms of being patient is probably well and truly expired right now. So
100%. But
we're trying to keep you updated. I guess we obviously we're hearing a little bit from Artur through Vans and trying to speak to some of the employees of the SpikeGG. So again, we'll try and keep everyone up to date on this stuff. But yeah, it's not as cut and dry as we maybe hoped it would be.
Let's keep supporting the Spike though, right? Because now that we see, as we mentioned before, like we got some people working on a voluntary basis. Now, even at this point where none of them are getting paid, then it shows that the crew and the company and the employees, quote unquote employees, air quotes, behind the SpikeGG are very passionate about the scene and passionate about writing. So let's continue to support them in that case to make sure that we don't boycott the website just because of that.
I think it's the most important thing is the separation of Artur and the Spike. It's like, these are not the same things. He was involved. He's no longer involved. The worst thing that could come of this, apart from the people not being paid who should be paid and are owed that money, is that it tarnishes the Spike's reputation, because everyone there right now is passionate, loves the game, and deserves the support just as much as they did before we knew all this.
Yeah, 100%. So hopefully we get updates on this situation as soon as possible and can keep you appraised of them. But for now, people haven't fucking gotten paid, and that's about it. We're going to be back after a quick break, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to catch up with Ellie from Man I Love Flogs. We'll also talk with GeorgeCGed as well, finally getting on the show as we discuss some of what's going on with G2 and T1. Stick around. We've got plenty to come on the other side of the break. And welcome back to VALORANT, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you had a moment to shake off the dust and rejoin us here. Mitch, I was wondering if you come back with a different kimono. Vans, you have one of those really basic bottles that tells you what time of day you should drink down to a certain level for, right?
It's motivation. So I definitely don't wake up at 8 a.m. But at least it's like, okay, I know that I have to keep drinking like every 2 hours, so I'm getting it down. So my 2 liters is already done pretty much. So I'm pretty happy.
Nice job. Yeah,
Thanks,
it
man.
looks like something that will be carried by someone who likes wearing yoga pants and walking on the beach in Orange County. But I'm glad you have one.
As long as they're Lululemons and I'm squatting the way I am, my ass is gonna be so fucking round. You're gonna be so jealous, Uber. You're gonna be so. Imagine when I wear those Uber fucking jogging pants right now, like what I wore last time. Now it's gonna be even more fucking firm and tight. So you
right.
better watch
Nothing looks as good as Van Silly's badonkadonk in them Uber joggers. Ubermerch.gg to get your own pair. Trust me, they're legit. All right, let's crack on here. We I mean, really glad to have an opportunity to welcome to the show for the very first time, Ellie from Man I Love Fogs, who's obviously a roster that's been definitely been generating some hype, I think, in the scene. Thanks for joining us so much. And I don't want to ruin it for everybody at home because we know what the acronym is, but I'm going to kick us off, Ellie. First of all, thank you for joining us. So glad you can make it today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Happy birthday!
Yeah, it's Ellie's birthday, everybody. Happy birth.
Happy birth.
So you're repping the merch right now, but tell us let's talk about how you came up with the name in the first place, because it's a little cheeky, I'll be honest.
So we've always had like just really dumb names. So since I started playing with them in December, we had like egg dogs, eggnogs, we had crouch potatoes, and then we had Man I Love Flags. And I'm pretty sure it just came from a joke, because one of our friends, shout out K-Sweet, had a team name called Brain Dead Supermodels, which is BDSM.
Nice. I was actually doing the letters too.
Yeah. So I think it just came from that. Like we were just finding like some funny acronyms and stuff to really, get a dumb name for it. I think it was just for GCL Season 3, like Valorant's Community League.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then
it's
we
always
just stuck with it.
it's always a minefield for casters sometimes. Sometimes the names are chosen to mess with like Riot or tournament organizers, or just they're designed to mess with the person who has to put in the overlay, the team's acronym.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And some of them are to mess with casters just to make life really,
It was
really
super
hard.
funny having like last VCT having one of the like admins join our channel and she's like, yeah, so we're not gonna call you MILFs. I'm like, oh damn it.
I was gonna say it's probably gonna stay as Flogs, just like, for example, Together We're Terrific couldn't actually put that acronym on there either before they got picked up by Envy. So props to you guys for being continuing to be original with the names. And by the way, love the merch too. I got the hoodies myself. As you see in the back, I do my laundry. So I still support. We just talked about it before.
Oh,
what's cool about,
guys? Look at me.
Right? I'm adulting. No, but what's cool about the merch is that the actual back of the hoodies shows the back of the frog too. So it's actually a pretty cute design. So make sure you guys check it out. But to get back on topic, right, and continue with the questions, because we talked about how the name got together, but how did the team got together as well, Ellie? Because I think at this point, from my understanding, not everybody comes from like an FPS background. So how did that come about? And then where was that moment where it was like, oh, we actually have a potential to be like a top contender and a top team in Valorant?
I don't think anybody like realized it until VCT, until we placed top 8.
Nice.
But like the team it was Katie Dinas.
Yep.
She's kind of the one that, pulled everybody together. Lynn's always played on a team with Katie, from what I understand, or not the first GCL, but I think Juno was on a team with Katie before. I started playing this game in December, and like
wow.
2 weeks later, she yoinked me into a team. She's like, be on my team for this tournament. I was like, oh, okay.
And it just came about that way. What was your experience in first-person shooters as well, or what was your background in your experience in gaming?
So I played a lot of Counter-Strike. I played a lot of SIVA League, a lot of ESEA League. I wasn't very good. I was good. I was just never on a good team.
Yeah.
Like I have 7,000 hours in Counter-Strike.
I got the same, but I think it's all in casting.
Yeah, I mean it's so weird because like I used to watch you cast.
Oh shit.
Yeah,
nice,
I used to like watch a bunch of these people that I'm talking to now, like Sapphire.
That's awesome.
It's just super weird.
Bless. Now you're here top dog in or should I say eggnog right now with the women's team, right? Mitch, man, go ahead.
That one would have murdered me. That thing would actually have crucified me.
I would have loved it. We would have joked around the whole fucking time.
It was super hard for any caster to say it properly.
Yeah, of course. Dude, already I can't even speak, so imagine having to fucking say some names.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure Katie just played like CS casually. Lynn played like CS and Tarkov. Klee came from League of Legends. This is her first FPS game.
Dude.
I'm pretty sure Crystal played
the hell?
CS as well.
So mainly around the CS era. So you have like the basic fundamentals, scaling, map control. I mean, I already see it from scrimming against you guys as well. So it's some pretty good stuff.
Thank you.
So let's talk about we've got a bunch of stuff coming up, right? We had Sapphire on last week talking about Dignitas and Riot partnering up for Game Changes. So that's obviously like all of a sudden a huge tournament just gets plopped onto your calendar. I'm sure everyone is spending a lot of time thinking about that. So without being too specific, I'd love to know, like, you know, the reaction to when you guys found out about that and what the prep for that's looking like, because I'm pretty sure everyone is really gunning for the top spot in that tournament.
Yeah, well, I've known about this tournament for pretty much since the last VCT, like main event. The prep is just the same as always. Lots of scrimming, lots of dry runs, lots of VOD reviews. Especially like our coach will focus on people he believes needs the most help right now. Or the people who have the drive to like ask him straight up, like, oh, I want help on this, I want help on this. So like scheduling things with our coaches, and really figuring everything out. We've known about it for so long that we've just kind of, it didn't really make us panic or anything. We just kept going. We ramped up scrims a little bit, and we've ramped up VOD reviews. That's kind of the only difference.
You mentioned that you don't really have any days off right now. What's like the day by day looking like for yourself and for the team?
Usually I wake up around 12. It's just my time that I wake up. I eat, watch YouTube, do whatever, and then we scrim at usually our scrims go from like 5 my time to like 9 my time.
Okay.
If we have VOD reviews or dry runs, it's always right before our scrims, so it's like we'll take an hour beforehand to do dry runs and VOD reviews. So we pretty much work 5 hours a day just for prepping for VCT, prepping for our upcoming tournaments, and trying to get better as a team.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit curious in terms of the region and scrimming. Is there like a favorite team for you guys? Because I know in EU, like when I ask teams this, there's some of them have got a team that they love to scrim and also a team they hate to scrim. You wanna throw some names out there?
Yeah, so I'm not gonna name any names, but
okay.
But we do have a lot of teams that we like to scrim, and we have scrims with them often, because they play very respectful. It doesn't mean they're not ego peaking shit and pushing and like being aggressive, but they don't like spray bodies, they don't talk shit, they're like friendly, they're just playing well. So like we have a lot of teams like that where we're friendly with them. They're super nice. They'll like come into our VC afterward and like give us things they've noticed.
Oh, okay.
That's
yeah, because
awesome.
they're all male.
That doesn't
like,
happen in EU, so that's pretty good.
all of the teams are male teams. So we're not playing them right now. Like we're not.
Okay, yeah.
So they're trying to help us get better.
That's really cool. That's really cool to see that level of like cross promotion. I ask you as well. So you said 5 hours. In terms of the structure of those practices, have you guys found, like, do you guys play flat out 5 games, or is there like a break in between? Is there like extra strat times? Like, what's the ideal practice format for you guys? Or you don't want to talk about that? Also cool.
No, I mean it's like 4 scrims. We get enough time for 4 scrims because we do play out all.
Okay.
And breaks in between. I mean, it's just a lot of me kind of trying to do new things and figure out what works, and like, because IGLing in scrims is different than IGLing in matches. Like there's a completely different mindset. And you've probably like if you've seen our scrims, if you've seen our matches, you know that there's like a distinct difference.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because I
Mhm.
stick with what works in matches, but in scrims, I'm just messing around, trying to find like weaknesses, like figuring out where I can poke holes and how I can do it.
Yeah,
And you feel
definitely.
like
I don't
you
want to
can
play you in a
probe it
match.
more.
If I'm already getting shit on in scrims, I don't want to play you guys in a match right now too. So, but I guess also to chime into what Mitchman's saying too. I know it's like 5 hours in terms of like dry runs and 4 scrims, but this is potentially just as a group. So outside of the 5 hours, there's probably more hours individually of just playing ranked, plugging or whatnot, and watching VODs individually to like continue to improve and bring new ideas. I guess a little bit more, right? So. Speak about ideas, actually. Is it mainly you that comes up with the ideas in the scrims, or do you get a little bit more from your teammates as well? In terms of, hey, I've seen this in a certain VOD, we should try this out as well.
It's with Lynn, especially for more aggressive plays. Lynn comes up with them. I like having Lynn just kind of call what she wants to do and having people support around her, because it makes like the attack or the plan easier because she knows what she's gonna do. As long as we have this util in certain areas, we're fine, and she'll get away with a free kill, at least one. So
Awesome.
I'm curious, actually. You're saying Lynn's coming up with the strategies. You said earlier, right? Lynn's background is in League, right?
no, Lynn's background was in
Oh,
CS and
mixed it up.
Tarkov.
All right, okay. But
Yeah, she's
still,
just a zoomer though, and she's like, I want to peek here. So, and I'm like,
Fair,
okay, well,
fair.
we dart here, we do these smokes.
Smokes
What a
first,
segue, didn't
shooty later.
It would have segued in nicely, but I guess it works anyways. Having a player whose background is in League, having Counter-Strike, having Tarkov, having all these different games, you find like it's very valuable to have that extra level of depth, because it was a conversation way back in beta, like right at the start. In Europe, we had a lot of PUBG Mobile players, we had a lot of Overwatch players, and then obviously Counter-Strike being the predominant force, being the superior esport that it is. We had a lot of that. I'm curious for you, like, do you think like 5 Counter-Strike players, a little bit of Overwatch, a little bit of PUBG, is it valuable to have that extra background?
I think the different games do help. The slower paces, like in CS Pugs, you just basically hold W. You don't like play defaults. In League of Legends, I've never played the game, but from what I understand, it's a lot of holding back until the right moment. So like a mix of that. Our coach has a lot of experience in CS. He's like really good at Val. Lots of time spent like on teams. Like there's the team Spread right now. That was his old team. He quit playing on that team to coach us full time.
Nice. Sweet. That's awesome.
So, we recently heard that, I think it was Annie that said that she was actually going to drop her masters and sort of pursue Valorant in more of a full-time capacity. What is your confidence in Valorant in the long term, especially now with Game Changes being announced and there's being a bit of a roadmap? Are you in a similar boat and feeling like you can sort of commit in the longer term?
Long term, I want this to be my job. I want to succeed. I want to be one of the best in the world, and I want to get to that point. I quit my job to do it. Lynn quit her job, but she's 17. It's not like she really needs a job. Like for the rest of the team, I'm not sure, but for me and Lynn, it's pretty much this is what we want to be our career. It's like it's been my dream since I was like 13. It's been
Nice.
Lynn's dream since she was like 14 or something, but that's not too long ago for her.
Still.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I want, and I'll fucking go 100% into it like I am now.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So just a correction, it was Katsumi that tweeted that, not Annie. Just to
okay.
clear that up.
So it shows at the same time here, Ellie, that there's passion for Lynn and yourself, and I'm assuming really at this point for the whole roster of how much you love this game and whatnot too. And I kind of want to know then at the same time, what's kind of like the system around of how you guys want to practice so far, right? So when we're looking at these scrims and you're talking about how things have been going so far, and you got some good feedback from the men's teams that you're scrimming against, how's the ecosystem around the practice for you? Like, do you find them just on Discord? Is it good enough for you? Is there any like type of feedback you'd like to give Riot, or like to anything you want to expand on that could help you in terms of that journey to continue to practice?
There's a lot of, I mean, like a 5-person queue would obviously be like a ranked
Yeah.
5-person queue would obviously be supreme for something like that, where it takes an effect individual MMR. But like mostly we just find it in like a lot of the hidden discords that
Oh yeah,
some people don't have access to.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we find most of our scrims.
Okay. So they're
I'm
good
not
quality.
the best person to ask because
Yeah.
Juna schedules everything.
Well, that's good. She's hands off for that, and you could just work on fragging and just being the best at what you could be.
She's really good at like just taking all of that pressure off of us.
I'm a little bit curious actually, because we were on the conversation of 5-man queues within the game, right? And 100% agree. I want those as well. The one bad thing about me actually getting a high rank at last, but the thing that I will say within the game, coming from Counter-Strike, you coming from Counter-Strike as well, I'm curious to see outside of queues and those sort of things in the game on the server, like agents, maps, those sort of things. What's the one thing that really just pisses you off about Valorant in comparison, like coming from a CS background? Is there something that you fucking hate? It could be a sky flash, it could be a certain corner on a map, but is there something that just really gets you every time?
The judge.
The judge, yes,
Yeah.
yes. That's
Judge
what I
needs
was
to be
looking for.
fucking nerfed.
Perfect.
Dog.
Perfect. Thank you. So there we go. That's a blind test right there. We've asked a professional player what they think of the judge's
My
number
girlfriend's
one. Get it done, Riot. Come on.
My girlfriend's gonna
Maybe
hate me
that's-
for saying that. She abuses the hell out of it.
Hey man, Vanity was mentioning before, like if it's in the game right now and you're good with it, why not use it, right? If it's gonna help you win some rounds. And it's the
Yeah.
same thing as when we're talking about evolving with the meta. It's if people are playing post-plant meta with a Viper, and they're playing like deniability and suppressing agents such as Astra, then why wouldn't you want to switch over to a gun that's gonna be fairly popular for a bit, which is the Judge, when people have been abusing Spectre and Frenzy at the previous patch before that, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So yeah, exactly. So just to continue again, we talked about like the competition, how things have been going with the scrims on the men's side, but how do you feel the scene is so far for the competition for Game Changers? Because when I was looking at the was it called like the Summerfest or something like that back in the summertime, and Cloud9 White kind of won it and ran away with that one too, right? But you're looking at the
Ignition series event.
the
FPW
Ignition
Summer
series
Show.
event from last summer,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
it kind of like blew everybody out of the water from that tournament. When you're looking at Game Changers that just passed in the upcoming one, and even like the Sakura Cup, the Pittsburgh Night, all that stuff that's happening right now on the women's side, do you feel that the competition is getting a lot closer and more competitive between the top teams? Like how far close do you feel to like the Dignitas, the CLG, and the Cloud9 White?
I mean, I know we can beat CLG. I know we can beat Dignitas. Cloud9 White's a different beast, and same with TSM.
TSM
I
as well.
know-
Okay.
Yeah. So, I personally like my predictions. TSM wins this whole event.
You mean Fwogs? You misspelled TSM.
I think we can get. I want to play against them in the finals.
Awesome.
They're scary though. Like I've seen their VODs. I've seen some of their like plays. You know, I've seen what they can do. They
Yeah.
are very, very scary right now.
That's
Okay.
interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah, we might actually start to see things getting then mixed up, because I think a lot of people who aren't involved in the scene are probably still expecting Cloud9 White to be quite dominant.
Mhm.
So that's good. That's nice. So obviously I think you brought them up as well. We just had we had the Visionaries tournament series where
Yeah.
Bill Butter also
Bill
turned
Butter,
up and
yeah.
showed that they were here to frag. So that's great. I mean, I can't wait for Game Changers. I think it's going to be fantastic. Ellie, before we let you go, I want to know like what in the immediate future, what's next for y'all? Like, you know, are you guys preparing for anything before Game Changers happens? Have you got any sort of stuff that maybe we might not be aware of? Anywhere we can sort of check y'all out?
Yeah, I mean, like on our Twitter at Man I Love Fogs, we have a really cool video coming out. It's just like a frag movie beforehand, like a hype video. We have a lot of cool merch things we're working on. I can't really say much more.
Okay.
I don't know when that's going to be out. We have to have meetings with the artists and stuff. I mean, realistically, we're going to be playing in every event that we can, you know, handle.
Yeah.
Everything we can find, everything that, you know, doesn't have a terrible rule book. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, there's probably a couple of those tournaments floating around now. That's right. Read the rules, ladies and gentlemen, if you know what you're signing up for, I guess. Ellie, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for joining us. It's really great to get to hear from yourself. And I think you probably earned yourself a few more fans today as well. So good luck to Man I Love Fogs going forward. And yeah, thanks for coming
Enjoy
on the
that
show.
birthday cake.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ellie.
All right, that was fantastic. Great to get to chat with Ellie, and I look forward to tracking that team's progress. I think she sort of mentions that, you know, there's definitely a bit more parity that's starting to emerge in the female Valorant scene, which is great. I didn't expect sort of TSN to be sort of touted so highly. We know that Gen G, Bill Butter, and obviously Man Life Fogs are also in the mix. So this is great. I shouldn't have been surprised, but I am with just how many different teams have materialized so quickly, and I think that's in and of itself evidence of, you know, something like Game Changers being really necessary and also really beneficial.
Yeah. By the way, you talked about reading the rules in tournaments. I just wanted to segue or sidetrack or go on a tangent.
Okay.
Apparently, there was a tournament in like Russia or something like that where it was like BO3's upper bracket and whatever. But if you actually went into the lower brackets, you actually had to play Spike Rush. Mitch, did you hear about that?
Yeah. I don't.
It's like the fucking gulag, mate.
yeah. It is, dude. Honestly, just
appropriate.
whip out 1v1s. 1v1s would be a better fucking system than Spike.
Replication.
We didn't make it through the lower bracket because we had to play a fucking shorty round.
No,
what are you talking
have to
about,
play,
bro?
You have to play a map of Overwatch if you go to the lower bracket. You know what I mean?
No. We're talking about bad ideas, not fucking torture. Let's keep it realistic.
Honestly, I read some comments, and I think even one of the players that played in there was like, you know what? It wasn't as bad as we expected, but like, of course, if you want to,
you're wrong. It was as bad as you expected. That's the only response to that. No.
I mean, I love it.
What are you
I think
talking
that's
about?
so funny. I mean,
Spike
Christ.
Rush.
I don't know much about the CIS Valorant scene either, but I can't imagine that would have been taken to. I'm just
Who came up with that? Who had the balls to bring
I have
that
to
up
know
in
what
a
the
meeting?
prize money is.
I hope there's
VODs.
I hope there's lower bracket VODs, dude. That would be fucking hilarious.
Well, yeah, you're studying them right before the match. All right, guys, let's watch this game. Yeah, you see what they did in the shorty round on Icebox there? No, what? Jesus, it's such a bad idea, man.
Commentating that as well, like the different orbs and shit. They picked out the golden gun
for 5 duelists. I wonder why. Like
on the Masters 3 analyst desk, I remember this tournament. This team was in the lower brackets and did a perfect shorty round.
If we end up playing Spike Rush because someone's on acid, like maybe, like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
I wish I had that confidence. You know that? I wish in a meeting, because we have like pre meetings with Riot after the events. We have these calls where they're like, you know, what did you think about it? Just give any feedback you want. I wish I had the balls to just be like, oh, we should just fucking flip a coin, shouldn't we? I mean, we've never had a lower bracket anyway, so I guess I've never gotten that opportunity, but I'll bring it up this time around. Yeah, let's just play a kill race and deathmatch. First one to win gets it. It's like
that brings back memories of draws decided by coin flips in Overwatch.
Early
days. It was built into the game. Anyway, let's crack on.
Decided by coin flip.
Yeah, it was this fucked mechanic where, like, in like a assault map, there'd be like a coin flip deciding who would get to attack, or it was.
Oh, that was like Rainbow Six
they didn't win
until recently. Rainbow Six was the same thing. It was like, and when it was 6-6, I think it was a coin flip to see who starts as an attacker or defender. Rainbow Six
It
as well.
gave a really slanted advantage. It was basically you win. It wasn't just
Oh,
like
'cause you
coin
don't-
flip for side.
You don't play each side in the overtime, no? You just play one side.
I think
Is it?
back then you only played the one side, and
Oh,
someone had
shit,
to like
yeah, that's not
you
good.
one team attacked, one team defended. If the attacking team got the point, that was it. So like
Just
you
give them
got
the win when they get the
Yeah,
coin.
that's kind of fucking dumb.
anyway. Cracking on. This has been an interesting story that I've seen emerge throughout this week so far, and obviously, Travis Gafford, who's worked. Jesus Christ! I mean, Travis Gafford's worked as press or in the League of Legends scene, almost just the League of Legends scene for years and years and years and years and years. Really well known, got good relationships developed with a lot of players, a lot of people at Riot, and basically he has witnessed some changes now happening with how Riot deals with the press in terms of how they answer questions that are pretty troubling. I think we'll play a couple of excerpts from Travis's video, and we'll try and contextualize this a little bit more because it is a concerning trend. Let's bring it up. Roll the
LCS starting. Only this time there would not be the opportunity to do live Q&A with the commissioner like normally. They were going to do this whole thing where you had to pre-submit your questions when you registered 4 days in advance. So you have to give your questions ahead of them 4 days in advance so they have that much time to prepare an answer. And ultimately, out of all the questions that people submitted, which again, you were allowed to submit 2 per outlet, there were a lot of outlets there, they only chose 6 or so of the questions. Now, one of them was my question about the import rule, because once more, I had submitted it. By the time the PR person read my question to Greeley, it had already been rendered meaningless because he had provided a written answer about this in an interview to another outlet earlier in the day. So now my pre-submitted question is all it's old news.
So that's a problem for a lot of reasons. Obviously, it's really not my concern about whether journalists can get the break on particular news, but the whole idea that you have to submit your press questions 4 days in advance, was it? That is now, if I understand this correctly, this is not for player interviews at the LCS, is it?
From what I heard from Travis's clip, it was commissioner, right? So it's probably just like not players, not the live stuff for like post game interviews and shit. So it's just for like news, PR, kind of like those patch notes kind of thing. I would like to think.
Right. So it's like a PR. Yeah, it was like a PR event. Right. Okay. So we can then we should manage the principle of this idea then that, you know, that is a large amount of time. It makes it pretty hard, I think, for any journalist to try and follow. Like you can't follow up on anything that you hear during a press conference. You know what I mean? It almost invalidates the purpose of being there in person to some degree. If you could submit your questions well in advance, then why turn up? Just tune in.
This was done by the looks of it, right, on just like a Zoom call almost. So they were removed from it altogether, if I'm not mistaken. Like they weren't live there. It was a system of I presume, based on what he said, everybody submitted 2 questions, 6 were chosen. They probably like discarded 50 plus questions if there's a lot of people. And then the problem that I have with it is that I can see from one aspect, if you're not 100% confident in being put on the spot, you don't like, you probably should be in that role. But if you weren't, and then someone's kind of throwing questions at you, you get like, you don't want to be caught off guard and not have the answer. The problem is that it comes to like censorship almost. Like if you're not going to allow yourself to be asked questions openly by the press, then what's the point of doing it anyways? If you're only going to pick, oh, I don't want to answer that question, I don't want to answer that one, I'll answer this one. You pick 6 like simple questions that you can do. Just don't fucking do the conference. What's the point? It seems really bizarre to me because it's like trying to appear open but also censoring. Like, what? Just don't bother.
I feel that if it's sorry, I was gonna say, like, I feel if it's like a just to look at the other side of the coin, it's like if it's a press conference and it's supposed to be, let's say, for marketing purposes, to like hype something up and to give more value into the product that you're trying to sell, like any topic at this point. I'm not going to say LCS or whatever at this point. Let's say you're doing E3 right now, right? And you're like, hey, let's let's come up with another feature for Xbox. Then at this point, if you want to do a PR stint about it and you want to ask the public, you kind of don't want to be asked on a spot where there's going to be some questions where you might say like you have to diverge to the right answer, or you just simply avoid it. And that's where it kind of like becomes kind of weird, and you're in a tough spot when you're trying to promote the product. I get that from that perspective. I also get it from a time constraint perspective. If it's going to be like 60 questions that are going to be asked and you only have like, let's say 30 minutes to do the press conference or whatever, it's like, okay, well, let's choose the ones that we can. I know that it feels like there's censorship into that too, but there's also that logistic into that you have to worry about as well. So that could be another one.
Okay, well, the problem is that this is starting to be becoming applied to player interviews, and this is leaking into the TFT and Legends of Runeterra space as well. That's been confirmed. This is malfeasance, actually. This runs counter to fair media practices in the traditional sports space. Normally, like in the past, you know, journalists might be asked to submit a topic or, you know, to give warning about subject matter. But I don't think that this is pretty alarming. And I think that people need to understand that this is actually really... So a good example is that in the thread where Travis talks about it on Twitter, Tyler Resberger sort of says, in a decade of doing esports coverage, I've only ever been asked to pre-submit questions one time. And that one time was when he was interviewing the 0-40 Shanghai Dragons after a season in 2018 and their winless season. That was, and they pushed back on that, and then they didn't have to do it. Blizzard recanted. So this is a huge deal. It's a big problem. And Riot, I think, has tried to justify it by saying that, you know, there's like one-to-one opportunities to talk with players on Saturdays and stuff like that. But it's pretty bad. I think it's happened in the LEC once before, but it's not a blanket thing. It's not being applied to their scenario. But this is not just a Riot thing. Blizzard has done it, especially when questioning developers. So it seems like these companies are so worried about their people being caught on the back foot. This is not how journalism works. Like, this is not, you cannot do this. We've got another clip from Travis, I think, so we can roll that. We can keep talking about this, but this is pretty serious.
I'm not interested in standing by and just allowing the media standards that we see in sports and games to be so completely changed in esports. You know, I really think that the things that we are doing here, the things that we accept today, and the early infancy of this industry and the early infancy of esports is what will become the standard for decades to become. And so if I stand by and let this stuff be warped, because we've already seen it again, by the way, start and just over the course of a month, from this MSI thing to the LCS stuff to the player interviews themselves, I think there's a good chance that this just becomes commonly accepted, and a year from now, whenever it's becoming even worse, people go, well, we've been doing this for a year. Why are you having an issue with it now? I've gone back and forth with Riot on this. It's not like I'm making this video in a vacuum. And basically I've told them, like, hey, I'm not interested in this pre-submitted, pre-screened thing. I think you guys need to stop requiring media to pre-submit questions for anything, just end that whole process and walk away from it and go back to doing live Q&A. And what I've basically been told is that I'm at an impasse. So here's where we're at. Travis Gafford of Travis Gafford Industries, will no longer be covering any day where this is a thing. So Fridays, unfortunately, you will not be seeing any content from me. I'm not interested in covering a day where pre-submitted questions are part of the process. Similarly, these media events that they do, if they do one before Worlds, if they do one before LCS Finals, if pre-submitted press PR questions are part of the process, I will not be attending those or covering them.
Let me be very clear about this. This is not normal. For those that are a little unsure about how this works, basically, in the past, these were open Q&A sessions where people could come up. Sometimes there'll be topics sort of submitted in advance. Sometimes there were some topics that were requested not be to be touched on. Obviously, like, I don't remember. There were a couple of topics I know in the past. I think like Alfari's situation is probably being avoided because he can't really talk about it. So he's probably just asking. But like, here's the thing. People, you get asked a question. You can still say, I can't answer that. There's nothing like you are allowed to just say, I can't answer that question. Riot is moving from an open Q&A structure to requiring journalists to submit questions to PR, who then vets the questions, and then that PR person conducts the interview themselves. I'm sorry. Am I going to now have a? Sorry, this might be a little bit of a stretch, but am I now going to have a social credit score applied to my League of Legends or any of my Riot accounts? This is a little concerning, and I know it's very common to see like people on like the conservative side of things screech Orwellian at anything that is remotely an example of someone trying to protect their image, but you can't do this. I mean, if you were like traditional sports outlets would not participate in this kind of process. This is such a classic case of Riot trying to control the fucking narrative. This is not cool. Now, ironically enough, and as you'll see in the thread, Travis Gaffer did require Monte Cristo to submit what he was going to talk about before he came on Hotline League on one occasion, because Travis was pretty concerned that Monty would get on there and talk some shit, which we knew he was going to. They were kind of feuding at the time. But basically, this is, I've seen people sort of talk about this, and people that have worked, I mean, Travis has reached out to people who cover traditional sports, and they have said, if our organizations were subject to this kind of, not censure, I mean, it's not great, but if our organizations, our traditional sports reporting organizations were subject to this, they wouldn't be a part of this kind of press conference. It is, and maybe this is why they're kind of getting away from it, because most people don't understand how dumb this is, but this is extremely poor practice to engage in. For anyone who knows how journalism works or how the press works, this is reprehensible behavior from Riot in a situation where they could simply allow these questions to be asked and then just let the individual say that I can't answer that, which is totally acceptable, something that journalists are entirely used to. So I don't blame Travis for saying he's not going to be a part of this. I wish that was enough to fucking make a difference here, but this should not be happening. This is extremely poor behavior coming from Riot.
The other thing I could think of is that maybe they're worried about someone saying something, asking a very sensitive question or something, like the Dragons, for example, when they went 0 for 44 at one stage. Or was it just 40? But either way,
pretty bad.
The problem I have with that is that the way that you censor that, in a way, it's like micro censorship, is if someone's a dick and asks a question that is just shouldn't be asked, you don't invite them back. You don't give them press access the next time. Like, everybody knows that is a potential punishment, no matter where you go. I think the White House is like the best example, where you ask a question that is, you just kind of like, dude, you shouldn't have fucking said that. You're not going to get brought back in. You'll have your pass revoked. So they already have that system. They can definitely do that. They can definitely stop people from participating in the conference. So I just don't understand the need for it. As I said, I can justify it in one way if it's a Riot employee, someone that isn't very confident. I understand that when I go on certain shows, or when I was starting out especially, and I went on talk shows, kind of like, guys, what are we gonna talk about? Can I like prepare some stuff? Because you're not very confident. And sure, if you're a Riot employee, if you're the commissioner or something, it's not your job to stand in front. Well, normally it's not your day-to-day to stand in front of, you know, hundreds of people, knowing thousands or tens of thousands are going to watch you. So I can get that, why you'd feel more comfortable. But if you're a player, like, when you tell me you're going to do that for players, why? Like, what is the reason? I don't see any benefit to it for anyone, other than maybe someone's going to be a dick, in which case, again, just don't bring them back next time and everything's okay.
Yeah, obviously, like, it's been it's a bit topical because, you know, recently those may remember that Naomi Osaka was fined, I think, for opting or refusing to attend a presser before, was it the French Open or something similar?
Yeah.
And there was a bit of furor about that, and a lot of members of the press were of the staunch opinion that she was obligated to provide that appearance. Naomi Osaka then backed out of the entire tournament, saying that, look, it's not a big deal. I just, I struggle with anxiety sometimes before meeting with the press, and there was like a whole argument about, well, like, she earns this money, so she has to do it, yada yada. So, Travis in the video, he acknowledges that sometimes the press can kind of be shitty, right? And I think that situation exemplifies the darker side of press in sort of traditional sports. But he doesn't believe that the LCS press team had done anything to justify this sort of sanction or this
That's it. It's like
this approach.
What problem are we trying to solve here is the ultimate question. When you make a change to the rules, you're trying to solve a problem. If you do it in a tournament, it's to try and avoid a bug being abused or language being used by players which offends other people. Whatever it is, there is an issue that you're attempting to solve for. I cannot see what that issue is here. Am I missing? Was there some massive event that I didn't hear about? Because the exception of that, it just seems bizarre.
So this is obviously this is Maximilian Schmidt, who is with the LEC. There obviously was a comment, someone saying the LEC was doing the same thing, and he was like, whoa, wait a minute, that's our interview policy hasn't changed at all. There was like a spring, I guess there was like a logistical issue with the spring event. It could have been like a COVID related thing, and then he reckons they answered it all. So I find this a little interesting. I mean, first of all, they're quite Max EX is very adamant about making it very clear that the LEC is not participating in this. So look, I mean, you have to understand that regions are pretty self-governed in terms of Riot's ecosystem. There is a global team, and then there are also regional teams, and that they would deal with sort of the more stratified processes that occur at a local level. But it's interesting that there is not a consistency across regions, and it leads me to wonder if there was a specific instance that has triggered this behavior from the LCS, and I wonder if it has anything to do with the recent situation regarding Alfari. But I just as we know, Valorant is a Riot product as well, and I think it would be extremely problematic for, and we're going to talk to George about this when he comes on the show. I'll have to bring it up with him, but it could be pretty problematic if this standard is enforced in Valorant as well. Let's talk a little bit about another deal that was recently signed with a company called Espat. I don't know. Normally, like your footage and your images would go up on a Flickr, which is done pretty commonly. ESL does it. I know Riot do it, and you can access photos whether watermarked or otherwise. You probably just have to credit. So Espat is a Jesus Christ. Espat is I guess this is a paid service now. So you can purchase licensing rights to these assets, these images that come from these Riot events. So it's a photo licensing platform, a full service creative design and innovation technology studio for gaming and entertainment. Great. Yeah, blah 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 blah. Honestly, blah blah blah. Really, blah
you
blah,
pay,
blah.
you get stuff.
Yeah, I just normally, so we obviously use a lot of assets from Riot on this show. When we sort of show footage or show images like that. So I think we're curious to see how much this is going to cost. But the problem is that, and this is again more of a situation that is of concern of journalists. But there were games on Friday, and nothing was uploaded to this platform on the Monday. I think like Travis Gaffer was like, "Yeah, it's Monday, and like it's fine. This platform exists, and I guess we'll pay for this content, but where the fuck is it?" So it wasn't even really being uploaded. So I don't know too much about how this sort of stuff works, but it's an interesting pivot to make to monetize this stuff. And I don't think they were monetizing it beforehand. I don't know if either of you know much about it.
Not if it's on Flickr, I think, right?
Yeah, it was on Flickr for anyone to download and use. I think it's kind of interesting. Like when I think about it conceptually, you have someone there who has to take those pictures, and as someone who's worked a lot, I think we will. All three of us have worked a lot with photographers at events, at least seen them. I've been good friends with some of them. And I remember one guy in particular was Jack Howard. He literally worked more hours than we did at a LAN that was like insane hours. Like we were putting in like 14 plus easy every day. And we'd finish and be like, "Yo, we're gonna go get some food or whatever. You want to come?" And he's like in the back room editing all the photos. Like, "Nah, I can't. I gotta do this sort of stuff." So in terms of like finding those moments and then editing them, it's a lot of work that goes into it. And obviously they're being paid for that work. It makes sense in a way. When we commentate, they make their money back off that, or in theory, because there's the broadcast, there's the entertainment and all that. So for this sort of stuff that's being used by journalists as part of their media, which is then making them money, I think it's a fair concept, but the value is really the question. Like I'd be very curious to see what dollar sign's going to be put next to it, because you got to be very careful not to completely outprice people. Might also get some articles with just like Microsoft Paint drawings of Boaster and stuff.
Yeah.
Could be kind of funny.
Oh, it'd actually be kind of funny. It'd be a good way of turning that around. All right, let's move on. Let's go to our last block and let's bring in our final guest for the show. Someone who I chatted with briefly over DM because I definitely thought that it would be good to get George involved at some point. George, mate, thanks for finally coming on board. You have been churning out a ton of work for Upcomer primarily recently, mate. So congrats.
Hi,
to you for that. And yeah, good to have you here, mate. I want to start off. I want to start off. Do you have any thoughts about this this sort of interview situation on Riot's side? Obviously, it doesn't really affect those in the Valorant scene yet. I love your shirt, by the way.
Thank you.
But
me too.
what do you reckon about this kind of approach from Riot?
Yeah, so when I first saw the news, I was a bit concerned because I was directly involved because I don't just cover like Valorant stuff. I also sort of dabble with League, especially when I was on Dot. I used to cover some interviews there. And Riot tend to have quite an open approach when it comes to things like this. They tend to be very cooperative. So I was a bit shocked when I saw this kind of news because typically their press is done by the Story Mob, which is a very good company to work with. So honestly, I don't really have much thoughts other than the fact that I think stuff like this shouldn't happen if it was true, because I wasn't personally involved with some of the scrums when they were happening. But it is concerning to hear that there could be media potentially not being involved in these kinds of questions. And I think it's very important because I was always able to like just ask a question and then get a response. But when these things are planned, you can basically manufacture answers, which is a big problem. And especially when it comes to Valorant as well, if this is going to be sort of what's going to happen in the future, it's not going to be a good thing. And hopefully, I really, really hope Riot keeps up this sort of open approach where everybody can ask questions and it's sort of just a Q&A rather than them, getting these sort of PR people involved and they're able to sort of manufacture answers. I've never been a big fan of that, no.
I mean, I've been trying to figure out, George, whether there's this is something where there's been a specific event that has acted as the impetus or catalyst for this decision, or if it's going to be more of a broad or wider reaching shift over time. I don't know if because obviously there was that recent situation with Alfari when he was tweeting but not actually tweeting, and there was a whole shitstorm about that. I'm trying to find out. I don't know if you have any thoughts on whether something has triggered this or if it's just like a change of paradigm.
Well, I believe Riot work quite closely with team managers. They are very involved when it comes to these kinds of things. And it's very different compared to games like CS, where it's basically just up to the teams and the players, whether they want to, and the tournament organizer, obviously. But Riot has a very sort of hands-on approach when it comes to these kinds of things. And I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't want things like this to happen. But we get to a problem and we get to this sort of impetus where players are being relatively silenced because they can't actually say what's going on. And I guess we kind of saw it with the Zellsis situation, right? Riot didn't tell the press, and they certainly didn't tell me. They didn't tell anyone what he actually said. And it's like little things like this, and especially when it has huge ramifications for a player of his size. And I spoke to Zellsis. I don't believe he has any sort of malicious intent when he makes these kinds of, if he did make these kinds of statements.
Yeah, usually not.
Yeah, of course. But it does set quite a dangerous precedent if Riot have a bit more influence than they're allowed to. That's my opinion on it. Whether it's actually going on or not, I'm not 100% certain because I don't know, Riot's connection with managers, players. I'm not 100%. But it is quite dangerous if it is to happen, especially in Valorant as well, because we want press to have, the most amount of access as possible, right? We want to be able to talk to the players, because people don't understand that part of our job is to inform the public, but also inform the players. We want to be able to help them. It's just a human nature thing, right? But when Riot have such control over these things, it doesn't allow us to completely do our jobs. But I will say that for now, Riot has been very open with us and has allowed us to do interviews, and they've allowed us to ask them questions, even speak to their devs, the players, everything. There's been no overreach, in my opinion, from them as of right now.
Right. Okay, cool. All right. Well, that's at least promising to hear on that end. See if that changes or not. But George, you have, I would argue you've probably been at the forefront of a lot of the reporting around some of our biggest roster shuffles that are happening right now in Valorant globally. You're about as lost in the source as it gets. So we're glad to have you on because we want to talk about two titans of yesteryear that are undergoing some significant rebuilding processes. Let's start by talking about T1, who were announced sort of way back when. We'll do a bit of history first. I'm sure you can contribute to that significantly. But when T1 were first announced, gentlemen, I address you all as a unit. There was quite a lot of hype around this roster for good reason.
That I mean, you look at the beginning. Sorry, George. I'll just start from the get go because when T1 was first announced, right? So the first iteration of this roster, it wasn't around really the food and crashies, in my opinion. It was more about, oh my gosh, it's like the iBuy powers. 3 of the 5 of that core is coming back into gaming. Skadoodle finally coming back after winning a major with Cloud9 and then kind of like disappeared a bit in terms of the competitive scene and was streaming a lot. EZK making a comeback. Brax continuing. Hey, he was a potential player in CSGO. Is he going to bring that same type of performance into Valorant? And then Food and Crashies are like, oh, up-and-comers in the CS scene, but then boom, look at who the superstars are now. But on paper, originally, this roster did look pretty good, George.
Yeah, I mean, the roster did look very good. I think one thing people aren't really mentioning when we talk about T1 is the fact that, you know, these are CS players, so they are going to adjust fairly well. But, you know, Food, Crashies, these kinds of players, they weren't at the highest level. And also Brax, he competed at the highest level, but it wasn't always consistently up there. You know, obviously he was banned, he wasn't able to compete in majors. And I think T1 sort of jumped the gun with these kinds of things. You know, there wasn't really a clear leader in these kinds of in this first iteration, I would say. Obviously they brought in Days later to sort of fix this, well, try and fix this issue. But I think most of the leadership mainly came from Fraud, in my opinion, when they had him as the coach, right?
Sure.
You know, he was the one with pretty much the most experience in terms of coaching, and you know, he played, you know, Counter-Strike for years. I don't even know how many years he's been playing. Probably more than I've been alive.
It was like 03, I want to say.
It's actually ridiculous. He's a veteran in the scene, and he was a great leader. And the problem with this T1 roster is that during their first iteration, it was very difficult for them to get going. Very, very difficult. Because of that leadership problem. And, you know, when you have these sort of players that don't really mesh well with the game, you know, they're not entirely the same level that they would have been at CS. You know, we've seen some players that are able to transition very easily, you know, Tens, for example. Already a very talented player in Counter-Strike, now probably arguably the best player in the world when it comes to Valorant, right?
Agreed.
T1, on the other hand, you know, it's not really been the same. So that's what I would say about the first iteration, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess at this point, so after Victor and Crashies kind of left, that's where you brought in Daze and Spider. Spider, I think, was one of those players, a Saya player, one of those coming in from Overwatch. I was like, okay, it might be something cool to see him as a duelist at some point in this team because he's been such a good Widowmaker player in Overwatch, apparently, from what I've been hearing. So we see him coming into the roster right now, always playing Omen, barely playing a duelist. And then we had some very slow, methodical type of like calling from T1 at that point too. So coming up to this point then, George, what's your thoughts of how this came about in the second iteration? Was it still the right solution?
It's like the Spider Skadoodle
right?
on Jet, then moved to Breach, like a change in style. Yeah.
It's like, what happened to that part?
Well, I mean, when Dazed comes in, there's sort of this, I guess, this leadership challenge where you've got Fraud and you've got Dazed, and then you've got everyone else. You know, Brax used to be, I think he called for just a small time in Counter-Strike as well. You know, he has experience with these kinds of things, and it just became sort of a clash, in my opinion. I think there was ideological differences within the team. I think played quite a big part when it comes to the destruction of the roster, really, in my opinion. But when it comes to personal preference of agents, I've always never been a fan of Omen. I think he's a disgusting agent to even use. I think he's awful.
He's awesome.
I think he's terrible. I think he's not usable in any comp really when you've got better agents like Sky and Breach out there, but you know, Viper in my opinion. But this is the thing, when you have a player, that is good on a agent that doesn't actually matter, your position on the team comes under question a bit, right? But you know, Spider is a very, very good player. Obviously, you know, he is very talented. He's very, very talented. But the second iteration was always, you know, I always thought it was good, but it wasn't like the highest level. You know, it wasn't breaking into the upper echelon. It was never going to, right? You know, Dazed is very much past his prime when it comes to these kinds of things. You know, he's getting old now. He's not, you know, at the same level as what he once was. And I don't think he's ever going to reach that ever again. That's my opinion. So yeah, I think they made a good choice at the time, but in hindsight, I think it was probably not the best move. In my opinion, I would say.
So, are Automatic and Curry at this point like the answer when you bring in Tim from Cloud9 with the tenure that he has in his Counter-Strike days?
See, again, it's more of these issues where you've got players from Counter-Strike who we don't know if they actually like the game yet. You know, there are so many questions when you bring Counter-Strike players and you bring all these different sort of you know, all these different players from different games. You don't know how well they're going to adjust, right? Automatic, I feel like, is one of those players that from when I watch him, I can just see that, you know, do you actually enjoy playing this game? You know, he loved Counter-Strike. He played, you know, do you know what I mean? Like, I look at him and I think, you know, you should be playing Counter-Strike. You're a Counter-Strike player. And I think for someone like Brax, it's a lot easier to sort of change over because I feel like, you know, he's got this sort of streaming platform. He's got the ability to have his own voice. He's got his own brand. You know, he's a very versatile player. He's always been known to be a very versatile player, especially when he came into teams in Counter-Strike like Cloud9 at CS Summit all those years ago. He's always proved that. And that's where I think Brax has shone in the past, in my opinion.
Yes.
There is a very, very, very big difference between Counter-Strike and Valorant, and the personal sort of feelings about the game can make a huge difference as to whether that player is actually going to be good at the game or just maybe above, you know, maybe doing well, but not like, you know, not a Tens, not a Durka, no one like this, you know? And you would expect Automatic to be that player, but he hasn't. So honestly, I wasn't too sure where they went from there.
Yeah, I wonder what's next for this team in terms of you know, I mean, we've talked on the show at length about like the coaching decisions that have sort of been made, and you know how, you know, we talk about the stunner situation, and we spend a lot of time hanging shit on David Dennis, and frankly, I do it without evidence sometimes. I just love to give him shit. I'm sure one day he'll front up to me in an event and be like, "Why are you such a cunt to me?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know, honestly, I'm not really sure." But let's talk about the future then for this T1 team, because you know we can sort of discuss whether what they've got right now is enough or not. But if it ain't, then what is? You know, what kind of trajectory do we feel like we're on with this T1 roster? Because there are a lot of people that are like wondering when they're going to be sort of back to that level of glory, who want to see someone like Brax really, you know, or not anymore, but would have wanted to have seen Brax succeed in this shell, and now wonder where T1 go from here.
Well, I think Curry's a very good player, for example. I think they've certainly got a talented player right there. I think he was a very, very good pickup. I think, obviously, from my report, I understand that Dazed has been removed from the team. So that is a leader gone, right? That's it.
Yep.
There's no more leader in the side. And the problem is that now there's a void, right? There's a void where they need to find another leader, or there needs to be a new leader in the team, and someone needs to step up. Whether that will be someone like Curry, someone, you know, already on the roster, we don't know, right? But then obviously, as my initial report came out, I believe Spider was taking a break, hence why, or he had some sort of, I'm not sure what the actual situation was, but he just wasn't playing. That's why he was
like, he cited some sort of,
he was just
not
out of the
mental
game.
health issues, but he was kind of burnt out, I think.
Yeah, that might have been one of the reasons. That's just speculation for now.
Sure.
But he wasn't playing with the roster for a time. But he's back, and now, you know, some people have suggested to me that perhaps he's not back, you know, full time. He could just, you know, be put on the bench. I don't know. But there are rumors, from what I know, of T1 potentially signing someone who I should be reporting on soon. You know, I still need to sort of
Dude, exclusive here.
I need to dot the I's when it comes to this, but from what I know, you know, I want to be a bit careful with what I say now, but T1 have almost secured their roster pretty much, is from what I know. I believe they are at the last stages of trialing players. I believe they are at the last stages of completing their roster. And I think that goes the same for basically every team in NA right now, obviously, because stage 3 starts either later this month or early next month, right? So they really need to sort of solidify their roster, and they need to do it soon. And I think the problem with this roster started with the removal of Fraud, and I think that left quite a large power vacuum, and that was really damning for the side, because when you have someone like Fraud, I always think he's reminiscent of somebody that has quite a good personality when it comes to speaking with players. From what I know, anyway, I feel like he has sort of leadership qualities that could be good if he was still a player. You know, he could be at the same level as like a Shazam if he was, you know, his age, or not, you know, not past his prime, for example. You know, Fraud back in the day was a fragger, right? So,
100%.
You know, back when I was playing with toys, this guy was, you know, shooting heads. So when it comes to T1, basically, I understand that their roster is basically complete, almost. I understand they are. In your opinion,
have they filled the leadership void? In your humble opinion,
no.
Okay.
No.
Interesting.
That would be my opinion. From what I know, no. But there is room for said players to step up and sort of fill that leadership void. Whether David is going to step up himself and, you know, provide this kind of leadership is yet to be seen, in my opinion. But yeah, so T1 are pretty much secure from what I know. So
okay. Well, then, yeah, I'm curious to see who gets announced, because I know there's going to be we'll talk about it on the show. I'm sure there'll be plenty of criticism if it's not like an instant fix as far as the layman is concerned, and it doesn't sound like it will be. Let's go across the pond here. All right, Mitch, here's your time to shine. Let's talk about the history, the storied and decorated history of G2 and how they started out. Jeez, we're going back a while now. These guys were the shit early on in European Valorant. What happened, Mitch?
Oh yeah, they were, man. Oh yeah, one year, one roster change, and they were winning absolutely everything. Like, it was the fact that they stuck together. You look at this team. I have no fucking idea how this happened. You know, in terms of the personalities on that team, never gonna work was my initial thought. I looked at the individuals. Have most of them performed at a high level? No, it's never gonna fucking work. And somehow they found that sweet spot in the early days. They were absolutely amazing to watch. Their reads, I'll tell you, the best thing about G2 was watching them on round to round, like their mid-round. For a team that didn't have a distinct leadership, that didn't have a dedicated IGL. And that was the other thing that kind of blew us away. We were all like, maybe Mixwell is taking it on board, right? Maybe like Pith from the Sentinels are going to be doing a bit. When we had a chat with these guys and they were like, yeah, we don't really have an IGL. We just kind of, whoever feels it, calls it round to round. It's like, fuck you, man. You don't get to be the best team in Europe. just do whatever some dude calls out. And in fact, if you watch some of the VODs, and from what I'd heard from a couple of different people, was that at times, a couple of people would have ideas. And it would be whoever shouts the loudest was the one that got followed. And somehow that worked. That pisses me off. It shouldn't, but it did. And these guys, like the reads that they had, and this was where the benefit of the different backgrounds they had within their individual scenes came in. They were all blindly confident in what they were calling and in what they were seeing. They would read you like a book. They would adapt to you. They were like fish in water. There was no way for you to predict what these guys were going to do. Because if you ask them, what are you going to do in the mid-round? They don't fucking know. They haven't got a clue. Whoever shouts the loudest is going to be listened to. I couldn't believe that this team got the success that they did. And we always cautioned though, especially in a game like Valorant. It was at the Allied Esports Ignition series that I first heard it from a Riot employee that there were going to be two new maps, every year, and 6 new agents. And that's when we were cautioning, if you don't have a coach, if you don't have a dedicated IGL, if you don't have some sort of structure, adapting to those changes is going to be very, very difficult. And we always sold the narrative in all of these Ignition events that this was a time-limited thing. And it was even backed up by Mixwell. I remember messaging him at one stage, and we were just talking about a couple of games and how the game went. He gave me a lot of insight from his side on how they played the game. But he said that it wasn't like everybody has this narrative of why don't they get a coach? Why don't they were looking for a coach. They were trialing it. But I challenge you to look at that 5-man, the original roster they had, and see any personality that fits in there. There's almost no room for it with the guys that you had. And so now, obviously, they've got Neil Zeno, they've got El Royo coming in as an analyst as well. They're starting to apply that structure and look to fix the things that we knew were going to be a constraint on them over time. But the story of this team in the early days and the success they had for how long they had it, it blows my mind. It really does, because you just look at it, and at every single corner, every turn they should have failed, and somehow they never did.
And to add on to that, to look at G2's evolution right now, and I wanted to get your opinion, because we talked about it before, George, before we come onto the show, between the three of us, that looking between the trade of like G2 and Heretics from like Artis and Patty Tech with Nuke and Avova, who do you think comes out a winner out of this one? Was it more of like a money transaction that Heretics comes out on top and they're looking for a long-term build? Because at least we believe that short-term, they're not going to get the success that we expected for them to get, or we expect for them to get.
You know, I would actually argue nobody won. I think that's my opinion. I don't think G2 have actually made the correct decisions, in my opinion. I think they have made some good moves, but I think in terms of the overall decisions they've made, it looks like a very sort of it's not addressing the problem, in my opinion. Now, the problem with G2 is the personalities on the side, as you know, Mitch mentioned. They replaced a few personalities with a few more personalities, right? So we've got this balance now where Mixwell, who has arguably the most amount of power on the roster, you know, he was basically the golden child who was saved, from the wrath of Carlos, and whether he would be removed or not. Obviously, you know, you can't remove Mixwell. You know, he's an immovable object at this point.
Sure.
But that's one of the problems, right? When you've got this immovable object who has this power over the roster, you know, you add personalities, and that's a bit of a problem. I don't think G2 will ever get back to the level as they once were, because I think, as Mitch mentioned, I would completely agree with him, actually. I would say at the start of the game, nobody really knew what they were doing, right? It was a very new game. People were still adjusting to it. Compositions were awful. You know, people were playing, for example, Omen, terrible agent, never should be played ever again.
Omen, stop it!
God, I actually hate it. You know, people were actually playing him, for example. And now that we're getting these new agents, these new maps, it'll be very, very hard to adjust. But I think with the recent changes of adding Neil, for example, I think that's definitely a positive. But personalities are always the problem. So, in my opinion, it would be G2 that kills G2 if it was to end that way. Heretics, on the other hand, I would say have potential. Whether they can reach the upper echelon is really another question for me. I'm not sure. I'm honestly not sure about the roster, because from what I know, they have sort of picked up the pieces a little bit, which could be a good thing. You know, it could be a good thing in one sense. But I think they do have a solid roster. But again, to compete with the likes of Team Liquid, Fnatic, these kinds of teams, FPX, for example, you need to be able to strategically outplay these teams, right? We saw, I believe, Team Liquid had some of the best strategies when I saw Masters. Fnatic as well, obviously Boaster, incredible IGL. I think he's very underrated. And now we sort of get to this impasse where you need to be able to match the strategies, if not beat the strategies of these teams that are constantly evolving with new agents, new maps, and a meta that will change basically every week. So, you know, we have this sort of post-plant meta, for example, right now. But then, you know, after season 3, everything will change again. You know, Yoru buffs most likely come in, and then, you know, everything will change basically. So I honestly don't know, but if G2 was to die, it would be at the hands of G2. That would be what I would say about that.
What do you make of this news that Pit is not scrimming with G2 presently?
Yeah.
Yes. So as far as I'm aware, Pith has not been scrimming with G2. That's correct. He has been streaming, I believe, in the meantime.
Yeah.
So I think they are trying to switch the roles a bit. I believe Mixwell was seen on basically every agent under the sun. I think he played like Viper, Killjoy.
Omen.
I think you. Yeah, I hope not Omen. Dear God. if I actually genuinely, if I see any player on G2 play Omen, I will actually bet that they will lose every single match whenever that agent is ever played. It's honestly terrible. Like, it's actually ridiculous. I will always hate on that agent so much. But no, so I believe they trialed Shed, and I believe they trialed Masashi, I believe is how his name's pronounced.
Yeah, Masashi.
Masashi,
German,
Right.
yeah, German
It's
player. I
cracked.
think.
German, sorry.
Yeah, again, it's one of these situations where, you know, G2 could potentially find an insane duelist. For example, I think Shed's incredible.
Do they
so
need an insane duelist? In your opinion?
I think so. I would think that they need that player to be able to take over. I think Mixwell's good, but I believe Mixwell could be better if he was on that sort of secondary caller kind of,
Sure.
you know, controller.
Wouldn't
Sentinel
Nokia?
kind of,
Well, so you would want
agent, in
Nokia
my opinion.
and a replacement to be on the duelist role. I think it's who was it that said that they wanted that they thought that Mixwell was too smart to play Jet?
I can't remember. Maybe a journalist. I'm not sure.
Yeah, someone mentioned that
might have been
recently.
Nell. Might have been Nell. I'm not sure. But yeah, so
Boaster said that.
I would
Boaster.
agree that Mixwell is too smart to play a duelist. I think he has the potential to be a very good controller or sentinel, in my opinion. I think
Great
Viper,
Omen.
especially. Not Omen. Any agent other than Omen, I would be happy to see Mixwell on. That is
Yoru,
totally
yeah,
fine.
pull him out.
Honestly, that would be
Let's
amazing.
go.
But yeah, so, you know, that's what I'd say about that. I mean, you could potentially pick up another duelist, but, you know, I don't believe 2 duelists in any. I mean, hell, I mean, I heard that they were playing Yoru in scrims. Like, for God's sake, guys, come
Okay.
on, you know.
Sure.
These kinds of things are never going to work. I think Yoru's an awful agent, and whether he will actually get buffed, I think he is getting buffed.
Yoru, I think is supposed to be.
Yeah, I
getting
think
buffed,
he is
yeah.
getting buffed. So fair enough, maybe they were preparing for that, but even so, it's a terrible decision. So yeah, I think G2 are in a positive state, but if they were to get maybe more of a balanced player that can actually find frags and can reach the potential of the roster as a whole, then yeah, I think it'll be a good change. But you know, whether Piff was the answer or not, I don't know. I really don't know.
I still want to know though, if you know the numbers, who won out of that transaction between G2 and Heretics, right? Because I want to get down to that.
Well, are you asking who came out financially ahead?
Exactly, because it feels like for Heretics they had more to they had more to gain
Lose.
from G2, right? Because G2 want to spend more to get Nuki and Navova away from Heretics. Because in the first rumored articles, it seemed as though that Heretics weren't ready, and they weren't. It was implied that the roster wasn't even going to blow up at some point, because they're like, we're good with the roster that we have right now, and G2 apparently is like, fuck it, we want those 2 players. So it would feel that they forked out more money to get those 2 players on top of Artis and Patty.
Pretty safe, yes.
Yeah. Well, the way G2 works is what G2 wants, G2 gets. That's very much how it works, because G2 has the power to basically do pretty much anything. They have the money, you know, they have the power. And when an organization like Heretics, arguably much smaller than G2, is, you know, you're able to sort of leverage that, right? But you know, when you get an offer to go to G2, you take it, right? It's one of the largest organizations in Europe, arguably the largest, right? So, you know, that is something I think should be mentioned, at least, that what G2 wants, G2 basically gets. You know, they have an overwhelming amount of power, especially with Mixwell as the lead of the roster. He's you know, one of the most well-known players, especially from CS as well. So yeah, I think that's a good and a bad thing. Whether I believe they will keep it up, I'm not sure. But I think if Mixwell was to be placed on a Sentinel or controller, I think it'd be better for the side. So yeah, I think basically G2, I genuinely think G2 were the better to sort of come out of it. But financially at least, because G2 basically, what they do is they get these players and then they become really good and then they just leave for a load of money, right? That's just how G2 sort of churns these players out. And I think if you were to pick up someone like Shed or Masashi, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but even so, if you were to get two of these players or either one of them, then you would have a player that you can easily make money on in the future because these are talented players. And it's like when I saw the moves from Fnatic when they signed Magnum and Durka. I originally had a conversation with a few friends of mine, and we were talking about how absolutely incredible this Durka guy was. No one really knew him, you know, coming from the CIS scene. He wasn't really that known. But he was putting up numbers. He was putting up solid numbers in arguably one of the most competitive regions. So I think G2, if they were to make a change, they would come off as the better financially. I would say that.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, that's fantastic. Some great insight there, George. Mate, thanks for joining us. Thanks for taking the time to come and chat with us as well. I know it's not always easy because you have a lot of information. You have to be pretty judicious in how you distribute it.
So
no worries, mate. What's where can people find you? If those wanting to know how they themselves can be lost in the source in the Valorant scene, where might they come across your work?
Obviously I write for Upcomer right now. It's a new esports publication owned by Enthusiast Gaming. Or you can basically just follow my Twitter. That's where I post everything. So it's George and then a C and then Ged, which is short for Gedis, my last name. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you very much. Well, yeah, we'll keep an eye out for more developments coming out of both G2 and T1, but of course,
stay tuned. T1, hopefully soon.
I'm waiting for that to drop, George. I'm licking my lips to see exactly what direction they're going, because you've set my expectations down a little bit there. Vans, Mitch, great to have you guys on. It's been quite the show. Thank you. And of everyone in chat, apologies to Ron, Rust, and Silver. Can't get to all your questions because we've gone over time with this particular show. But great to have you all back here for another episode of Valoranting. We'll be back next week, Tuesday, of course, 11 a.m. PDT, with some more action. We've got plenty of stories developing that we're going to be circling back, discussing plenty of stuff coming from Riot themselves, the developer, and looking ahead to some of tournaments in the near future. Thanks for joining us, everybody. See you next week.
Ciao.